All right, so we are now live. I am going to go ahead and I'm just going to have to send this out on Gab because as of now I have been I've been banned on Twitter for a week, and it's because of one of the spicy tweets that I intentionally sent out. Because um, I can say honestly that with Twitter. Um, my opinion of social media, let's put it like this. My opinion of social media is increasingly dim. I think that honestly, social media was a mistake. For all the good it's done, I think it's actually done more harm. And I think that Twitter in particular is the most addictive social media platform, and it is cancerous. I think it has been uh, one of the it's a piece of technology that as a catalyst it has served one of the greatest purposes in radicalizing the left when compared to any other social media platform. I don't think that there's anything comparable to what has radicalized the left that is comparable to Twitter. Because if you look at Twitter, like your average leftist on Twitter is like a fucking foaming at the mouth communist who, if they had the Infinity Gauntlet, would Thanos snap fucking every conservative, every non-communist in the world. They would do it. Like they're that ravenous and deranged. And I don't really take for granted the idea that they're just bullshitting. They seem to be like genuinely mentally unhealthy. And so I say that unfortunately with social media, in particular Twitter, it was a mistake. And so I don't really care that I've been banned off of it because even though I would consider myself somewhat addicted to social media, particularly Twitter, I'm kind of burning out on it. I really, it's one of the reasons why I've been sending out so many spicy tweets is because I just don't care anymore. I really don't care if I get banned from all these different outlets. It doesn't really matter to me anymore. Uh, because I don't really think at this point that there's any recovery that's going to take place. Facebook has crossed the threshold. There is no light at the end of the tunnel for Facebook. It's done. And at this point, I'm considering when I should delete my Facebook page for my account here on YouTube because there's just no future in bothering on Facebook. They're just too far gone. They'll never stop. They will never stop censoring. Even if, let's say, Trump, Thanos snaps some legislation, they will just continue to do what they're doing. They will not stop censoring no matter what. And I think that the most recent round of bannings showcases to me, in my view, that there is no path of redemption, so to say, for Facebook. That they are in effect done. And my opinion is that Twitter has been in that position for quite a long time, but that it's the most, it's basically the crack rock of social media, and I'm just whatever the name of the character was from Chappelle Show. Like I'm just that character and not giving it up. But it's up until recently where I've just kind of had enough. Like I don't really care. I don't really care about it anymore. And one of the other more disappointing parts of doing this channel and being on social media is just all the bad news that comes across your eyes. Like it is this year in particular, man. Last year was bad, and it's been bad for the last few years. But my God, dude, this year has just been fucking brutal. Uh, in my view, things have been pretty freaking dark ever since the Christchurch shooting. Um, Ever since then, things have been really dark, and it's really not let up. the fact that what happened in Sri Lanka, India, what happened there with the bombings, the suicide bombings from ISIS aligned Muslims, is the fact that they outright said that that was in response to the Christchurch shooting. And it's like, well, that's not going to stop there. You know, so long as things continue on the track that they are, it's like you're going to get more pent up fucking beta males that are going to repeat what was done in Christchurch. And the reason is that based on what was done in the case of New Zealand, all that does is show you that terrorism like that works. You know, if you want to accelerate basically the collapse of the West, and you commit terror in the name of that, and the response from the government is to do exactly what you wanted them to do, why wouldn't you have more like burnout fucking, losers from 8chan that go out and do the exact same thing? Like, what's to stop them? So yeah, the news as of late has been really dark, and it's why I haven't really done a newscast in quite a long time, is because I don't really want to cover the news too much, because so much of the news is just really dark. And like I was saying about social media, and I'm just sort of airing what I've been thinking about for a while now, and it has to do with being censored on Twitter, like why I didn't care. One of the issues that I see is that when you look at the left, I think that, well, it's a combination of things, really. It's people like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro will never fight back. Ben Shapiro, to the very end, no matter how tyrannical the government gets, no matter what's done against him, maligned against him, the only exception I would say would be if someone took away the special protections that exist for Jews. Maybe then he'd fucking fly off the handle. But outside of that, no matter what is done to conservatives in the United States, Ben Shapiro will go down advocating everything that he's advocating now. Like he will go down not swinging, so to say. I think that he is probably one of the worst people out there. Not the worst in terms of the right. Like obviously, there are worse actors. I think that the worst of the worst on the right are the Never Trumpers. That's one. And it's not to say you have to support Trump, but it's that particular Trump derangement syndrome people that are technically on the right. It's those people. And I said, it's not an endorsement of Trump, but those people and the people that are out there saying, as people on the right are being censored off of social media, they're out there trying to either equivocate or downplay the fact that the right needs to be fighting back. And what that is appeasement to the left. When you appease the left, they just take further ground. And they're so radical. They're so radical that, it's just a wonder of, excluding the boomer Democrats and the people that are going to like vote for Joe Biden and stuff like that. The portion of the left that make up like the ground troops, the stormtroopers for the far left wing, those people, in my view, are reaching the point of radicalization where they're just gone. Like they are, in fact, a fifth column in the West. And like there's nothing that we can really do to do, like there's like, the more they perceive themselves as losing power, the more radical they get and the more violent they become. And the case in point example that I could give for what I'm talking about is the guy that, and I'll try to find the article, but it was a father who was in like some sort of custody dispute with his wife or had separated. But he was wearing like a, this is what a male feminist looks like, something like that. Let me see. SJW gets shot in head by cop at school. I saw this video a while back. I don't see it. Let me see. Male feminist. See if I can find that. This might be it here. Hang on. Yep, this is it right here. This is it right here. This, to me, in his shirt says, smash the patriarchy and chill. In my view, I don't really know what the percentages of the far left that to me qualify in being this guy. But in my view, this is a guy, like when I say that more leftists need to punch cops, this guy actually did it. And what I'm trying to say here, and I'll get back to shitting on the right because I do think they deserve it. But this guy is too far gone. He's dead now, obviously. But let me put it on screen for you. To catch you up to speed to anyone in the chat, I'm now censored off of Twitter. I'll be off Twitter for a week, and I don't really care. I did it intentionally. I just wanted to see what it would take before they would actually pull the trigger and censor me. And I got away with it for a few days. But yeah, this to me is the guy. This to me is the element of the left that I think that Ben Shapiro never wants to deal with this guy. Ben Shapiro has no answer to this guy. And it's not just him, but I'm just saying the Ben Shapiros of conservatism have no answer to this guy. Okay? So let's watch what happens. So this guy is in a domestic dispute. He shows up to the school. He wants to take his kid out of school or, talk to his kid. And there's a cop, I believe a resource officer that, stopped this guy. And they want this guy to get off the premises because he's in a domestic dispute and he's trespassing on school property. Okay? Ben Shapiro has no answer to what to do with this guy. But my solution is for this guy is for guys like this. And this is the thing, like, I don't want to make light of what the police are doing in this situation. But I am just saying that what happened here is the only conclusion for this kind of leftist. This is the only conclusion to this kind of leftist. And this guy represents some portion of the far left. And I'm going to shit on... I want people to put a pin in this. I'm going to shit on the right. I'm going to shit on Tim Pool. Okay? So if I forget, people in the chat, remind me to shit on Tim Pool. Okay? Because I just unsubbed from a secondary channel for a couple reasons. One, I'm sick of listening to him clear his throat, have a raspy voice, smack his fucking lips, and do other things that annoy me. But also his shitty opinions. So just remember that I'm going to shit on Tim, okay? Okay, people in the chat are going to say so. Okay, thank you. Seriously, I'm not saying that for the sake of it, other than I might forget to do that. Okay, so getting to the point, with this leftist, he is too far gone. He is too far gone. He is deranged. He is a fanatic. He is violent. He is a lunatic. Okay? Now let's watch what happens when he's confronted with two cops, two good men, simply trying to protect children and enforce the law. And enforce a trespass against somebody that has no right to be in the school because he's volatile, he's in a domestic dispute with a loved one, and his child is in the school. And that's a very volatile combination. As any cop, no matter how much he is a rookie, he'll tell you that domestics are dangerous. So that's what's happening here. These cops, as far as I'm aware, are aware of what's happening here. So let's watch what happens. And I know it's not going to be the greatest frame rate, but you'll know what happens.
I do. I'm actually the school. Listen to me. If the principal is not asking, listen to me. You're gonna end up. You're gonna end up.
Hang on. Okay, this video sucks. Hang on. I'm going to find a new video because the bleeping is going to kill you guys that are on headphones. So I apologize for that. Let me find a better video of that because I've seen it on a bunch of different. Let me see if this one isn't bleeped. Okay, it is bleeped. I remember seeing this, I think on... No, that one's probably bleeped too. My God. Let me see. Sorry about this, but I don't want to play the bleeps, and I want you to hear what happens. It seems to me that it was on, let me see, police activity. That's one channel that might have it. Okay, it's not coming up. Fuck. What's this guy's name? Charles Landros. All right, let me type that in instead, see if I can find a better one. There's either police activity or another why can't I find his channel? It's not coming up. I wonder if this is just the fucking biased search results from YouTube. Because there was the raw footage, and I don't see that at all.
Mike Blue.
No, it's just some faggot commenting over a frame. Oh, here's the live leak. Let's see if this one... Okay, here we go. Let me just make sure this isn't bleeped.
If the principal's not honest, listen to me. You're gonna end up.
Let me check with the chat. Are the beeps that bad? Should I do? People are saying, okay, donut operator. Yeah, okay. I'll do donut operator. I saw his on here. Let me find that and I'll play his. Where is it? Here it is. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Ooh, his volume is up. Okay. So this is. Let me remember to link this. I'll link this to channel. This is a donut operator. He's a cop YouTuber. So let's watch this. Right here. All right.
I do. I'm actually the school. Listen to me. If the principal's not honest, listen to me. You're gonna end up. You're gonna end up. Go! You're under arrest. You are under arrest. You are under arrest. Go 3 first.
Turns out that Charles died.
So yeah, what you can't see there, and he blurred it a little bit more, is that the guy got shot in the head because he pulled a pistol on 2 cops as he was physically struggling with them. So they probably would have been better if I was able to set that up in, the first 10 minutes of actually talking about it. But and I apologize for the noise, but I wanted to have you listen to that so you can understand what happened. So that's what I'm talking about. A certain percentage of, he also fired 1 round. He got off 1 round before he got shot in the head. That guy was too far gone. And in my view, that is a certain percentage of the left, to where it's like there is nothing that you can do. Like, there is no walking them off the edge. Yeah, I know. Someone just said in the chat, the insanity of editing out swear words in a video where a man is a fucking man dying. Yeah, you watch a donut operator censored it, portion of it, but you can literally see that guy get his fucking head blown off. So yeah, my point is saying that it's not just a video of some crazy guy in a domestic dispute going to his kid's school, getting shot in the head. To me, that is symbolic of a certain percentage of the far left. Like, they are running around in life half-cocked, ready to go off. Just ready to frickin' die that day. And the issue is, there is no compromising with those people. And so that's where I'll shit on Tim Pool. So let me look up Tim Pool's secondary channel. And we'll talk about. I knew as soon as I clicked on his channel, it was gonna have a fucking autoplay.
Some of the quotes.
Shut up, Tim. So I just today unsubscribed from Tim, and like I said, it's for a few reasons. The biggest one is probably him smacking his lips and the quality of his videos just really tanking. The fact is that he is being way too hyperbolic on way too many videos, and he's contradicting himself, of which is incredibly annoying. Let me find... I don't know actually if I can find the video that, to me... for those of you that watch a secondary channel, you might be able to... Oh, here it is. This is it.
Those.
Okay. So the video is called Trump Was Right. George Washington is next. Washington mural, too offensive to stay. So this story got me incensed. And it's for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is that, to anyone that's dealt with the far left, is my screen blinking, or is it just the thing on my end? Hold on. Stop. Let's try that again. Okay. I don't know what that was. Anyways, this video of Tim's really pissed me off. And hopefully, I don't know exactly where we're going to be in this video for me to talk about it. But, okay, yeah, it was blinking. Sorry about that. I fixed it. But in the case of Tim here, he doesn't understand. Like, he is in the position of Ben Shapiro, except for on the left, where he actually doesn't understand tactically the error that he's making. So let's listen to what he has to say, and hopefully this is in a good enough spot, because he repeats himself over and over in this video. But let's see. Is it still blinking? People in the chat, is it still blinking? Because it's not blinking anymore on my end. So I'm going to wait a second to see if the chat catches up. Is it still blinking or no? Okay. Anyways, so let's just recap really quick before we hit play. In the United States, there are statues being ripped down across the country. It happens primarily in the South, but it's now happening all over the country. And the problem with it is that the people that want them torn down are communists. Now, I know how that's going to sound, but this is what I mean by when I say that. It's not about slaveholders. It's not about, offense. It's not about anything other than bulldozing over the men that built this nation. What is the goal for the activists that want these statues, murals, the rest of it? What they want is to eliminate any unifying factor in the United States. They want to eradicate all of American history, and they also want to eradicate the notion of a shared American identity. They fundamentally do not believe in the concept of a shared American identity. They want to remove that. And part of that are artifacts that symbolize American history, American heritage, and American unity. They want to eradicate those things. Anything that can bring us together, they want to remove. That is their goal. And they will say anything, and they will do anything, and they will convince you of whatever they can manage to get across to you that they will convince you of to, they'll say it to convince you to allow them to do it. With that said, let's listen to this video.
Into account when considering the intent of the images. The mural's painter, Victor Arnautoff, was a protege of Diego Rivera and a communist. He included those images not to glorify Washington, but rather to provoke a nuanced evaluation of his legacy. Bravo! Bravo! Exactly. The scene with the dead Native American, for instance, calls attention to the price of Manifest Destiny. Arnautoff's murals also portray the slaves with humanity and the several live Indians as vigorous and manly.
So I'm going to pause it right there. There's a few things that I could say about this particular mural in this, I think it's a high school. The mural itself doesn't really matter, but it's the fact that no matter where you are, no matter what city you're in, no matter what state you're in, these people are constantly agitating for the removal of any symbolism of a shared American history. Anything that symbolizes a shared American history, that is what they want to remove. And for right now, they're not targeting the black monuments like MLK, the rest of that shit. They eventually will. They will eventually attack the MLK memorial statues and the rest of it. They will eventually remove those statues too. Because their ultimate goal is to remove all of it. And it's a few things. It is in part to then assert their own ideological hegemony in terms of culture, which is a territory, in my view, they are dominating in. They are dominating culture right now. And this is part of it, by removing these statues, bulldozing a shared American identity. What they want to replace that with is their own. Or in the case of some of them, none at all. Because they're anarchists and they want to have our country burned down. They are evil people. The problem is that Tim and I agree that even in the case of this specific mural, it's actually nuanced. And the guy that drew it, the illustrator, was a communist. So he didn't draw the Bioshock Infinite like, he didn't spell it out as though that George Washington was a living saint. It was, in fact, in part, critical of his legacy in the United States by showing like a dead native and whatever else. Even though if you look at American history, there is a ton of myth and propaganda surrounding the Indian Wars, surrounding the legacy and the history of Native American versus white man relationships, who killed who in greater numbers, who's responsible for the genocide of the buffaloes and the rest of that shit, all the propaganda around smallpox blankets and all this nonsense. There's an incredible amount of phony, like black propaganda to create the justification for Indian agitation nowadays. Even though Indians nowadays are suffering under their own rule. They live on their own little racial enclaves and they suffer. Highest rate of suicide at any demographic, highest rate of alcoholism, highest rate of poverty as far as I'm aware. They're the highest rate of drug addiction. Like, they're the worst off demographic in the United States. And yet it's still somehow not, and this is the thing, it's the difference between the activists and the average Native American. I've interacted with enough that I know that this is definitely not true for maybe even the majority of Native Americans. But the activists will day in, day out blame every issue that exists for natives on the white man. The white man is the person to blame for all of it. And there's a certain amount of truth that I'm sure we can, a comparison that you can make to black activists, the identitarian black activists. It's the same deal. No matter what's wrong, no matter what choices you make, it's always the white man that's responsible. Now, the thing is that you're given a choice, and I don't want to spoil my point in this, but you're given a choice between respecting someone's delusion out of a patronizing attitude because you don't think they can handle the truth, or you smack somebody in the face with the truth and you don't care how much it hurts them. You don't care how much they recoil in perceived pain or fear in dealing with the truth. At times, you just have to lay people with the truth. And the fact is that the blight that exists among Native Americans as a demographic, and the blight that exists for blacks in the United States, is not the fault of the system. It's not the fault of the government. It's not the fault of the white man. It's their fault. What's gone wrong in their lives is almost very likely the consequence of their actions, their bad choices. That's part of this. The other side of this is in a nation that is continuing to have a society that is degrading and a culture that is more polarized and less united, has less in common, has increasingly less and less in terms of a shared identity. When we see the polarization that is demonstrable, and to credit to Tim, he has talked about recent Pew study research that has illustrated once again the fact that polarization is increasing still to this day and is getting worse still. In a time in which we have a deteriorating society of two people that have such mutually exclusive beliefs and competing beliefs, that the idea of what is it in divorce, that you have such irreconcilable differences that it requires a split, when that is the track we are currently on. In my view, what is then required for all of us that want to unify the nation, that don't want to fight, that want to live in a United States, an actual United States, what that requires, in my view, is overcompensation in uniting factors and suppression of disuniting factors and disuniting activists, subversives, so to say, those that are seeking to create conflict and force a violent ultimatum. And there are many people in our society, many far-left activists that are fighting tooth and nail every day, day in, day out. And there are thousands upon thousands of these people. There are thousands and thousands of far-left activists that want nothing more than for there to be a violent conflict in the United States between them and anyone that's opposed to them. That is their goal. Like the guy that got shot in the head by the cops that I showed earlier, that is that guy's goal. That's what he wanted, and he got it. He wanted to overthrow the patriarchy. He had his chance. He pulled a gun. He tried to shoot 2 officers. He got shot in the head in response. Every day, there are thousands of people that wake up, and every waking moment they are awake, they're spending it trying to create more conflict and divide and polarization in our society. That is the issue that we're dealing with in this moment in time. And in my view, if you have racial activists, communist activists, whatever kind of identitarian or far left activist, if they show up in your town and demand, the removing of an American flag, removing of a uniting monument, or something that showcases American history or is a uniting factor for everyone in the area, you should do what you can to speak out in opposition to that. Like I did it. I created a petition and they're still trying to do it now. There's a statue of Christopher Columbus in a park in Buffalo, and they keep trying to get it removed. And the last time they had a real push to do it, I created a petition. I beat their numbers. Like I raised more signatures in opposition to the removal of the statue, and it got zero press coverage. They covered the hell out of that petition to have it removed because, there's very little difference between the press and just the far left activists. They want the same things. And you can see that in the bias. And I sent it to a bunch of journalists. I sent my petition to a bunch of journalists on Twitter, through email. No one covered it. Zero people covered it. And the reason is because the journalists agree with the far left activists. But in my view, if that happens in your area, if you actually want to live in a peaceful country that's not about to degrade into a civil war, you should stand up and support the fact that we do live in a history, or we do live in a nation with a history that is like every other nation on the face of this earth, in that it's flawed, and that there is no justification for the removal of monuments, especially in a period in which communist activists are doing it for the sake of tearing down this nation. But I'm pontificating. Let's just listen.
You see? But they're traumatized by it. Oh, heavens. Bordowich, in a phone interview with The Fix, said, there is a deeply wrong-headed habit to project today's norms, values, ideals backwards in time to find our ancestors inevitably falling short. Of course, they always will. We made the world a better place. They succeeded. Today, we are working towards making it a better place, and tomorrow, hopefully, we will have succeeded.
So I'll stop right here and say that, Tim, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of activists in this country that want violent conflict. They do not agree with you in making this country a better place. They are evil people. They are violent. They are deranged. They have convinced themselves of false beliefs to which, they are so irrational that it's just a matter of waiting for them to go off like that particular guy and attempting to kill a cop, in which he's killed in response to his behavior. There are crazy people across this country, and they are emboldened. Okay, keep that in mind. They're not looking to make this country a better place.
It doesn't mean, in my opinion, that we need to put all of this on display publicly in front of everybody.
Stop. Tim, we're living in a we live in an incredibly polarized society now. It's only gotten worse and worse and worse. People have only gotten more and more violent. Things are starting to degrade. We're sharing less and less values. When people say American values, that means very little now. We're not as bad as most of Europe, but it still means very little now, because who knows what that means? What does American values mean? Free healthcare, free college, free meals, free tampons, free everything? Tax the rich and then just hand out shit to fucking everybody? What does American values mean now? Well, it depends on who you ask, doesn't it? Because every year that passes, there's less and less that unites us. In my view, it may require that we have things on display. It may require us to actually stand up for a shared American identity. And if somebody says, well, George Washington was a slaveholder. Yeah, we all know that. Shut the hell up, you communist. That would be my response. That's what I would say. What does it help at this point to state that, to state the obvious? Thomas Jefferson, oh man, he wasn't a perfect guy. Ben Franklin, he wasn't a perfect man. What does that mean now? What does it matter? What does it mean? What difference does it make in saying that? It is a truism that is nothing more than something. It is not that person's original idea. It is something that it is a thought that someone else has put into their mind to say that this country has no value. Because every single fucking time somebody makes that kind of statement, that is what they are in fact saying. Because at this point, you would have to be retarded not to know that the founding fathers owned slaves. There's a nuanced history to most of them and their positions in relationship to slavery, but no one but like the 1% of people that give a goddamn about our actual history take the time to even read about it. It is 1% of our population that actually has any concept of how each founder, how they perceived slavery and what they thought about it over time. Because very few of the founding fathers actually had a single position on slavery that lasted from pre-civil or pre-Revolutionary War to right up until the day they died. Very few founders stayed rigid in their original position. And yet very few people, 1%, have any understanding of that. So as it relates to somebody that goes, Washington was a slave owner, Washington wasn't perfect, Washington did this, Washington did that. The question that should be in your mind in the polarized, divided, falling apart society in which we live, Mr. We're heading towards a civil war, why don't you actually have any kind of rebuttal to them? Why don't you actually say, like, this is actually what George Washington thought about slavery? And the fact is that your empty truism is not your own thought. It's a platitude someone has put into your head, and all you're saying is, damn the United States. Because that is all that anyone means when they say that statement, whether they understand it or not.
Maybe some of it should be, in fact. But I think museums hold an important, they do something very important to protect it in the long run. He says, it betrays a very troubling intolerance of art. It betrays a very troubling intolerance of art and the ambiguity of art and the aspirations of art. They're also trying to, they're interpreting what he was intending to convey, which shows they're actually losing sight for the history of the mural, which we should probably...
Tim, hello? You know, Tim, anyone home? That's the point. Why do you think ISIS was bulldozing statues in Iraq and Syria? Why do you think the communists ripped down statues? Why do you think we had the Iraqis rip down the statue of Saddam Hussein? What do you think the point is?
Probably have some context by the mural to explain what it is. The superintendent and staff are now reviewing the recommendation and considering the best course of action. At this time, there hasn't been any recommendation put forth before the SF Board of Education on the matter. Sure. It's not the first time murals have come under fire. In the late 60s, protesters called for its removal, which the school responded to by installing another set of murals titled Multi-Ethnic Heritage, Black, Asian, Native, Latin American. These murals display more positive images of ethnic minorities.
Yes. Tim, guess what? They compromised back in the 60s. They compromised back then. And you know what they did? They raised statues to natives and blacks and all the other, and guess what? Didn't do anything. Despite being 13% of the population, Tim. You know, should we have a look? I mean, regardless of the FBI statistics around blacks, how about we look at some FBI statistics around Native Americans? So, catering to these activists, what did it actually do, Tim? Because that was the compromise, was to give in to the activists, do exactly what they wanted, and to erect these other monuments in the name of racial identitarianism. And guess what? Have things gotten worse or have they gotten better? What do you think? What do you think about, Tim, we're headed towards a civil war pool? What do you think about the status quo in doing that? That compromise.
The Richmond District blog reported. We get it. Boyowich added that the mural is not a celebration of genocide. It's a challenge to westward expansion. It's incredibly stupid if we try to erase history. It still happened, and you should argue about its meanings. I agree. I'm not, this wasn't the most like egregious thing I read. I thought it was interesting and worth talking about because my opinion on, taking things down is more nuanced. A lot of people on the left say destroy it. You have people on the right saying leave it. No, I think there's an important thing we need to do. When you recognize these leftists want to outright destroy it, what happens if you say, no, we're going to keep it up? Well, some dude's going to show up with a mask and a sledgehammer. A bunch of dudes are going to show up with...
Yes. Okay, Tim. So we're getting to the point that I want to reach now. Okay? If a bunch of communists show up to rip down a statue, that begs a certain question, doesn't it? It really does beg a certain question, don't you think? Because I don't see the right doing this. And if the right was doing it, obviously would have a problem with it. But the left is showing up, and if they're not given into, if their demands are not met, they will simply carry out what they want to do anyways. We've seen it happen. It begs a certain question. And this is what I mean about Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro will never do anything to actually intercede. He will just condemn something. He will just talk. He will never actually do anything. And that's why, in many ways, I have no respect for him. Because he will simply sit on his podcast and pontificate. That is much as he will ever do. But let's see if I can get him to actually say the thing that really angered me about this video.
With rope and tear it down. And for whatever reason, the police don't stop it. Or some dude in Texas plants a bomb. No, I think what we do is we say, okay, all right, don't destroy it. We're going to preserve it. We're going to preserve it somewhere where everyone can come to see it in a place taxpayer funded.
Hey, Tim, you fucking retard. That's called a public park. That's the point of a public park. You fucking retard. You are fucking stupid. It is unbelievable to me that you can sit there and chuckle to yourself as you advocate doing something that is going to lead to the exact same fucking result. It's unbelievable to me that, like, how is no one, like, I've seen him say this in several videos as some sort of nuanced position. Tim, we now have not just a public park run by the communists. Now we have a museum that we have to all fucking pay for with these statues in. You think they're just going to let them stay there? No! They're just going to advocate the removal from that museum next. Fucking idiots. I'm nuanced in this position. Well, wow, you're so fucking four-dimensional chess, so big-brained, you do what they want you to do. You remove the statue. We want you to remove the statue. Tim says, I'm going to compromise and do exactly what you want me to do. Put it somewhere else that someone else is going to pay for. So that's either you find some random charity, some random organization to take down the statue and preserve it, quote-unquote, or you put it in a public museum, which is just another public platform, another public utility, another public area, which is no different than a park. And you think they're going to stop there? Why would they? You've already conceded to them. You've already appeased them. Like, it's just unbelievable to me. And this is the thing that's like, this is a low quality video. This is an incredibly low quality video where he's not even trying. He's not even considering what he's saying. This is not in any way nuanced, Tim. This is a completely retarded opinion. And all you're doing is conceding to the left with exactly what they want. This is nothing more than appeasement. That is all you are advocating. And this is the thing, okay? The communists show up to the public park or the museum eventually. Because you didn't listen to them, they tear down the statue. Now what? Now what, Tim? Now what do we do? And if you have some people there, like what happened in the South, if you have some people show up with some guns to protect the statue, now what do you do? What do you do now? The lunatic far left are not going to fucking back down. What do you do? And that's the question that you keep just in some way cynically pandering to. Like, oh, the whole Civil War talk in the polarization in the United States, but you don't actually talk about the fact of what we need to do in this matter. What must we do in order to get the left to back down? Because it can't be just a matter of appeasing the left so that this time they back away for now. What can be done to win back ground? Like, you are sitting there from the position of a guy that has basically accepted the loss. That is the position you are taking. It is freaking pathetic. So yeah, I'm just gonna stop watching his videos for a little while, because this video just completely set me off. You know, I wanted to do a response to it, but it would have been what I did earlier, just shouting at this guy. Because fundamentally, like, he doesn't understand what he's advocating for. He doesn't understand that a compromise, in his view, is literally doing what the far left wants, and in essence kicking the can by putting the statue or the monument in a museum, which is going to be public anyways, which is no different than the park in the first place, which then will be protested, because we've already seen that in museums. We've already seen that in galleries. We've already seen them protesting things in museums. Why do you think this would be any different? It's just unbelievable to me. Like, people like legitimately like don't understand that in our culture, and I'm very pessimistic towards it right now, because even like the best and brightest of the intellectual dark web, you know, Tim Pool and the rest of them, like they fundamentally understand the issue of we are living in an increasingly polarized society where our values are like mutually exclusive, and yet we're just going to keep giving ground to the left. We're just going to keep removing all the things that unite us. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to come of this if we just continue to back down? Like, what do we do then? And so my thing is that the thing that I would advocate for is that if you are in a situation where you have people that are doing this in your area, it requires you to get involved, whether that means starting a petition or going to a counter demonstration or something. It requires you to do something. Because if you don't do something, if we don't do anything to try to combat this, all that means is that we're going to have another crazy-ass shooter that's going to go out there and do some crazy stuff. Because they're going to be this, you know, weirdo, socially awkward loser who thinks that, you know, unless they go out and kill a bunch of innocent people, you know, in the name of the white man, like, unless they do that, nothing's going to be done. And so what it requires is for sane people to do something that's actually sensible, which is not appeasing the left, telling them to fuck themselves. Go punch a cop. That's what I would tell them. The far left shows up in my town, I tell them, do yourself a favor, do us all a favor, go punch a cop. Please do us the favor. We all know you're just a couple days away, a couple months away, a couple years away from doing it anyways. Just go find a cop and do it now. Go punch a G-man, FBI, whatever. Go find a state agent. Go punch him. Do us the favor. Do yourself a favor. Get it done now. Because that's what's going to happen eventually. You're just a powder keg. So, yeah. Terrible video. Absolutely terrible video from Tim Pool. And one of many that I've been frustrated with in just making continuous concessions to the left, where they don't deserve any. They don't deserve any appeasement. You should be standing up to them, because everything they're advocating for is something that is going to rip this country apart. And for many, that's what they're advocating for. Will says, out of context, this will sound really bad. I don't think it will, because I'm not advocating for anything but taking sensible action and engaging in politics in a way that's actually going to prevent bad things from happening. So I'm going to read some super chats because they're piling up. Joshua says, what's my opinion of secular talk? Kyle Kalinske is a pussy, and he is the poor man's version and the left-wing version of Tim Pool. Like, Tim Pool has some things going for him. Kyle doesn't. They're similar in their style and their presentation, but Kyle is dumb. He is a legitimately dumb person. Tim Pool is not. He's just lazy. Zontar says, when Trudeau took office, one province was conservative rules. Now it's 7, possibly 8 in a week. Even up here, they're losing. Well, I mean, it requires the conservatives in Canada to not be the left. And I don't really know what hope you guys actually have in Canada, because it seems like the conservatives in Canada, not all, but a certain amount, are just like the Tory party in the UK, and it's just like they're just the left. They've conceded all their positions. Patrick says, I was an apolitical neocon, lean into social progressivism. If it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have seen a progressive mob go after Colin Moriarty. It started and provided for my red pill journey, I guess, if you can defend him. Overseer just gives me $1. JT Viper says, hey, Louis, just wanted to reach out and say, keep fighting the good fight and let you know I appreciate your commitment to the issues you champion. Thanks. You're welcome, JT. Thanks for the support. Mitch says, Tim Pool has become a hyperbolic doomer. Yeah, I would agree. He has, in certain videos of his, he becomes incredibly hyperbolic, and I really don't like it. And he's been getting some flack for it, but he needs to be getting far more flack for it, because his content is getting terrible. Dale says, got to go to work. Sucks. I'm going to miss you. Shitting on Tim. We'll watch later. His own comment section is always shitting on him, but he never listens. Maybe so. I've read some of his comments. They seem to be mostly, praise, which you would expect for the guy's channel. Mobile Crusader says, give not 1 inch to the censors of the past, because they are the censors of the future. Yeah. They're just censors. Bazinski says, just arrived tip jar. Thank you, Bazinski. Seeley says, the progressive light types have nothing value to offer to the dialogue. I wouldn't say that Tim Pool is progressive light. I would say that Bunty, Jeff Holiday, the couple atheist channels that hate Sargon, and Chris Reagan, I would say they're progressive light. Overseer says, the Virgin Tim Doomer Shapiro and his neocon allies, I think he meant Ben. Neocon allies versus the Chad Louis collar nationalist. That's actually funny. Collar nationalist. It's really amazing to me how far the pop collar meme has gone. I'm actually surprised how well that caught on. Like, you guys are going to have to show me, like, remind me what video that was. I'm going to have to clip that and upload it as its own video. I'm actually surprised on how popular that meme is with my channel. And his fellow anti-censors, us. Yeah, I mean, Ben Shapiro, I have to give Ben Shapiro credit because he did, in fact, and Tim Pool, in terms of the censorship of, mainly Paul Joseph Watson and the other people that were banned, Laura Loomer, the rest of them that were banned just recently on Facebook. They did come out and condemn it and retweet a bunch of things of people condemning it and talking about it being dangerous. But I do genuinely think Tim cares, and I do think he wants to prevent that. With Ben Shapiro, I don't think Ben gives a goddamn. I don't think Ben gives a damn at all about the censorship that's going on. I think, honestly, he's just focused on his own end. I would say that Tim is actually genuine in that way. But Ben, I find completely disingenuous. I don't think he's got his, and I don't think he cares about anybody else. Because anybody else is just competition for him. That's the way I view him. And I don't think I'm wrong. Dylan says, the sad thing that MLK won the civil rights battle but lost the cultural battle to Malcolm X and the Black identitarians. I've said it many times in this channel. Yeah, it's one of the greatest tragedies of MLK was that he got the civil rights agreement or, act, but he failed culturally. MLK completely failed. And it was however many years, 40 years of the press and, politicians trying to gin up his legacy as if he completely succeeded. He didn't. He got the Civil Rights Act, but otherwise he completely failed. Culturally, he completely failed. Black identitarianism is rampant among blacks. And they're hardly the only group, but it's rampant now. And that was, in fact, what he was against. He was against that. Malcolm X was in favor of it, but with Malcolm X was somewhat contradictory and also a fascist. So it's kind of hard to take somebody seriously who's like, and he didn't call himself that, but he was a fascist. And he was like a Wakanda forever guy, but as far as I can tell, though, he wasn't dumb. Not like the activists of today who are just freaking gone. Like, they're just total ideologues. He was an ideologue, but from what I've read of his and what I've seen of him, he was not stupid. And I'll give him that. But he was crazy. He left the Nation of Islam for a reason. But, I mean, he wasn't too different, really. Blair White says he doesn't want the operation. Is he still trans or a crossdresser? I would still regard that as trans, but there's like a degree of separation between crossdressers, which are considered traps, trans, and then transvestites. I find fault with each of those segments. I think each one of them have their glaring issues. All of them, promiscuity is a definite and demonstrable problem. Mental illness is a demonstrable problem among all. Seemingly child exploitation / pedophilia with transvestites, particularly. Maybe some of the others, I won't say one way or the other because I haven't seen enough to say either way. But with transvestites, I'll just say it. But I would say that if you don't want to go the full way and still consider yourself trans, I think that that's fine. Because I've seen too many articles and too much evidence to say that going the whole way, so to say, in transition is maybe it works, but there's a lot of evidence and a lot of people that went the full way that say outright it made them feel worse and it made them more depressed. And it's like, ugh, with those statistics, man, maybe let's put a break on that, not in terms of like a law or anything with your own money, but just a matter of like people that are around you and genuinely care and say, listen, let's tamp the brakes on this a little bit because there's an increasing amount of people that are trans that went the full way, male to female, full way transition that are deeply depressed and say they wish they didn't go the full way. Like, there was a huge bombshell article that I covered in the New York Times, which was basically a dead man walking. And I'm just going to leave it like that. And I know that dead woman walking there, I'll be considerate. It's not a light issue. And I am still, even now at this point, willing to show some deference. But I will say that, and it's increasingly common to say, outside of the politically correct circles like the mainstream media and that sort of thing, the bubble, that we need to put a hard date associated with transition. There needs to be federal law around transitioning, and it probably should be around 17. It should be probably around like the age you can actually sign a contract, somewhere around there, that you're allowed to actually start involving yourself in transition. And any kind of advocacy for transition involving anyone below that age should be prohibited, period, federally. Because the results that we're seeing based on just the liberal attitude towards this is not good. It is really not good. That 45% freaking suicide rate, I don't see that going down anytime soon. So maybe we need to pass some laws around this, and then maybe people are going to say, oh, my rights are being violated. Well, we're trying to prevent you from making a mistake that more and more people that go through the surgery are saying was a horrible mistake. So maybe we might need to actually put some hard rules in place to see this stop, because it's getting to be something that is it's glaring, you know what I mean? But it's not to say that I don't have a certain attitude towards it that is completely dismissive or anything like that. But I think that Blair is right in tamping the brakes, in my view. Based on the results that we've seen, Blair is thinking, she's in her right mind in that way, in my view. Waiting for the eureka moment. These activists don't realize if the U.S. implodes, they aren't ready for global hell on earth, dictators, pandemics, etc. that will fill the vacuum. Absolutely, man. I've said it for a long time that if we fold, man, that is just a green light for every, what do you think that Saudi Arabia is going to do? The UAE, Iran, what do you think Vietnam, China, what do you think these nations are going to do? You think that all these, even with Russia, you think these despotic countries are just going to, magically overnight become utopian? If the United States folds? No, man, it is going to be hell on earth. And, I just don't know what to say. I have to put some onus on Trump and especially the congressional Republicans. Like, you got to do something. You got to wake the hell up and realize that our country is in some ways culturally more specifically than politics itself. Things are not great, but in culture is freaking disintegrating in this country. Like, every freaking thing is turning into propaganda. Everything, television, news, HBO, Hulu, like Netflix, movies, comics, video, everything is turning into propaganda for the far left. And unfortunately, there's just way too many people in this country that don't want to look at it, don't want to accept it, are actively turning a blind eye, or are either outright activists for it, in favor of it, or are people like Chris Reagan that basically they pick and choose when they want to actually talk about it and accept that it's something that's happening because of whatever they're doing the Clinton style triangulation of their own ego and their own clique and their own popularity, their own fame. Like, they're determining case by case what they actually want to defend and what they want to attack and what they want to ignore. It's the Clintons called it triangulation. That's what he's doing by all estimates. And that makes him a cynical actor. I won't say that for everybody, and I wouldn't in any way say that for Tim Pool. I just think he's getting way too hyperbolic and losing quality in his actual content. But people like Chris are just cynical. They don't actually care about any of it. But yeah, good super chat here from Eureka. Nicholas Van Neal says, same thing happening in Australia or Aboriginals as your natives. abhorrently high levels of crime, drug use, alcoholism, domestic violence in remote Aboriginal communities in Australia. Yeah, it's no different. I've asked a bunch of people, whether it's the natives in Canada, the natives in the United States, the Aboriginals in Australia, like, doesn't matter where you go. If you have like some kind of like Aboriginal/native population and you segregate them away, that only makes them completely fall apart. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't. I've never seen an example where it has actually worked, where segregation actually works in that way. It always appears that it makes a destabilized nation. And you can look to South America, South America, excuse me, South Africa, I mean, the nation. What's going on there? Man, if you want to talk about bleak, man, let's take a look at South America, Venezuela in South America particularly, but in Africa, South Africa, man, holy crap. Talk about, like, they're having problems now, like, running their country because they're scaring out all the competent people in their society. Like, increasingly, they're just becoming like a dysfunctional society because people are just leaving as refugees, actual refugees, because they're facing genocide. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily technically genocide just yet, but I'm saying that it's definitely on the peripheral. I will say that in terms of their politics there. It appears to be something that you can see. It's on the track right now and is incredibly dangerous because they have some black identitarian communist party that holds a tremendous amount of sway in that nation. And if it gets its way, it will genocide whites. They've outright said that they want to do that. And that's going to it's going to turn the country into whatever it was. Zimbabwe, was that the nation where they like genocided a bunch of whites and then the whole country fell apart? Was that the one I'm thinking of? You can't just kill all the people that are growing your food and running all your different systems and infrastructure. You can't just genocide them and think that that's going to result in a functioning nation. You're going to turn a developed nation into a third world nation overnight if you do that. That's what's going to happen to South Africa if they do it. If the black identitarians in their country actually just start genociding whites, they're going to turn their country into a third world nation. It's going to become a new Zimbabwe or Venezuela. Yeah, people are saying Zimbabwe was it. Yeah, I thought so. People are saying that they're pissed off at Tim about the him being in that lawsuit with I guess I'll comment on that since I've already talked about Tim on Subverse, which is a porn game that's I think it's on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, I can't remember which. While I do think that Tim is in some way being not disingenuous, that isn't the right word, because he does care about this, and it is because he does have that brand, and it has been around for a while. And I think the frustrating thing for him is that he's trying to expand it and capitalize on that brand, and now this porn game comes out of left field. I think that has frustrated him deeply. And I don't think that he's actually expressing to the degree, and I think that people would see that as petty of him, but I think that he's entitled to feel that kind of anger and frustration based off the fact that he's been trying to turn his brand into something bigger. I also will say that if I were to give fault to somebody, it actually wouldn't be Tim. It would be the people behind that game, because Tim contacted them trying to straighten this out, and he did come to them, say, I want you to change the name of your game. Like, it really did. It was just like a demand. Like, I have this brand. I want you to change your brand or the name of this indie game. That was aggressive. But their response was completely unprofessional. Completely aggressive in return. That was escalating the situation. And Tim's response was, okay, then, because they said, next time you want to respond to us, talk to our lawyers. And Tim's only choice then is to say, okay, I guess we're going to advance to a lawsuit or a potential lawsuit. So I have to say that if I'm going to give fault to anybody in that situation, Tim is not completely blameless or faultless, But I'm giving the majority of the blame to the people behind the Subverse game. Because they're the ones, in my view, that acted unprofessional and were very aggressive in their response to him. And that's what I mean. Like, Tim was aggressive, okay? They didn't give him any alternative but to lawyer up. They gave him no alternative. They literally said, the next time you contact us, do it through our attorneys. What choice does that give him? What choice does that give Tim? So I saw a lot of people giving him a lot of shit, but it's like, and he did disparage it for being a porn game, but I think it's because it's affecting his brand. I think it's coloring his vision of it. The thing is, though, is that I really, like I said, I really have to give fault to the people behind the game because they're acting like assholes for no reason. Like, he's being serious about this. What that requires of you is to be serious in return. And you're not. You're just being derogatory, insulting, flippant, and telling him to lawyer up. And so he did. So like I said, I as much as people are finding fault with Tim in that regard, I gotta say that I find greater fault with the people behind the game. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm not too sure. Josh just said it in the chat. Josh said that they apparently had some sort of weird interaction in the past. Like, this isn't their first point of contact. And Tim was kind of vague about that, as far as I could tell. So, yeah, you might be right that we don't have the full story, but I gotta say that we might not know exactly what's going on here, but I am telling you that, like I said, the person at fault, as far as I can tell, are the people behind the game. Because they were flippant. They were completely flippant about the fact that Tim is coming to them and actually requesting that they change the name of the game, which is not, I mean, that's not uncommon for brands and for names of games and companies and, you know, the products they produce. That is not like new or, you know, abnormal. That happens all the time in corporate America or just the world even. Happens constantly, every day. So, I don't know. Maybe people are just like, they think it's something like way out of whack, that it's not normal. But as far as I know, that's very normal in corporate culture, you know. Let's see. Where was I in the super chats? Will says, in a museum, it would be way less likely to blow up the statue. I hope. These people are pretty crazy. I do agree it's a bad solution. It depends whether you cater to them or not, Will. Like you got to understand that it's just priorities. It is Saul Alinsky tactics all the way, man. It is just simply priorities. What they can get away with right now, and what's the biggest thing that calls to their attention. Right now, it's statues in public. Let's say we remove all the statues in public they demand. Well, the very next step is then all the statues in museums. That's just the next go-to phase. There is no appeasement that will ever convince these people to stop. It will simply just be a wall, a brick wall. And it's the same way with Sargon and the press. Just simply no. That being your answer. And if they flip out, and I'm not even going to allude because people are saying that I'm going to sound bad out of context talking about it, but it's like, you know, let's put it like this. You got a public monument that the communists are coming to rip down, put cops armed with long guns in front of them. And I'll just say that. Because they have the actual authority to use force. You know, we cannot abide by this. I mean, if you want to have ridiculous terrorism, like all these like beta males running around killing people, or if you want to have like an and this would be my view, is if you're not going to have the cops intervene, it then necessitates militias. And I'm not even joking. Like, if the cops will not intervene when lawbreakers are committing crimes, it then requires you have to then have a citizen order. You then must have a militia that will enforce the laws instead of the cops. All societies require law enforcement. You cannot have a society without law enforcement. Laws mean nothing if there's not someone executing those laws. And if the cops will not stand in for whatever reason, they've been ordered to stand down, or they're too cowardly, or whatever, they're afraid of getting fired because that's a real thing, it then requires militias. That is the next step. And I'm sorry, but it's like they're not professionally trained. They're more likely to be partisan and a lot less to be, the ideal neutral arbiters, or at least the law enforcement officials that are attempting to de-escalate and conclude a situation in prevention of further, violence or infraction of the law. The cops serve many purposes in pursuit of order and the law. And if they don't, then it necessitates some group that will. If they won't do it, it necessitates that somebody else will. And the only solution that I can see is militias. And that's probably going to result in more violence. So, it's just a matter of what can we do? Because allowing infraction of the law, I'm not with that. I am not on board with allowing disorder, with allowing people violating the law. I'm not on board with that. I don't care, like, I sold crack and shot a few people, and look at my puppy eyes as I sit in jail for 40 years. Don't you just want to let me out? No, serve your sentence. I'm serving a sentence for the rest of my life. Good, rot. Fuck you. Serve your sentence. Maybe go out there and educate some people to not break the law. Then they won't have to spend the rest of their lives being warehoused until they die. Because I'd rather have somebody die in prison than allow for the continuation of just flagrant disregard for the law. Because without the law, we have no society. It is the foundation of everything else. There is no liberties, there is no freedom, there is no nothing without enforcement of the law. And so, if you have communists that disregard the will of the people, the will of the authorities on the matter, and they tear down public property, it necessitates action. It necessitates either prevention, intervention, or consequences for the violation of the law. And the fact is that the worse it gets, it's going to require more and more punitive actions taken, not less. You cannot reward disorder with leniency. It only then breeds more disorder, more violation of the law. If it gets bad enough, it will necessitate action. It will necessitate further punitive action, harsher sentences. It will necessitate it. Why don't we preempt that by intervening now and not letting things slide until we're in that position? Because we eventually will be. So yeah, I understand that nowadays, especially, with the Baton Rouge shooter and the other shooters, like, it's not a good time right now to be a cop, especially in the inner city. But, it's the same thing with developers, where most cops find their balls once they're off the force. Because they have a career, they don't want to lose it. They have people will say the pension, yes, but they have a career. They have families. They don't want to lose it. And the same thing goes with developers. They have reasons to keep their mouth shut. But it's like you can't just keep your mouth shut forever. Because your job is only going to get harder if you keep your mouth shut. In my view, this is what I believe. I think in Portland, Seattle, all the cities that have this problem, with the demonization of police, with the inaction of police, with the brass ordering the police to stand down, the police should go on strike. The police in all these cities should go on strike. They should coordinate with one another, because they have unions, coordinate with one another and issue demands to the brass, to the city, and if they're not met, then they should go on strike in unison. And then let's all watch what happens to our progressive, nuanced society, our centrist, nuanced society, when the cops aren't on the beat. Let's watch and see what happens. Because only when something like that happens are the boomers and the morons in our society going to wake up and realize what happens. When you let these people do whatever the hell they want, how far they'll go, what they'll do. And it's not just the progressive far-left activists. It is simply the everyman. What they will do when the cops aren't on the beat. When the laws aren't being enforced. What the laws mean when there's no cops on the beat. Let's watch and see. Because we've seen it before. It's happened all throughout this world. And not even that far in the past even. It happened, was it in Brazil? It happened in one South American country where the police went on strike for a short period. It happened in Canada, I want to say in the 70s. We all know what's going to come of it. We all know what's going to happen. But in fact, in my view, in Seattle, Portland, these cities, that is in fact what needs to happen. You need a shock to the system. You need to let these people know that there's a thin blue line between them and the agents of disorder. The agents of chaos, the people that the only thing that's stopping them from murdering you and taking everything you got are these cops, these everyday citizens with a uniform and a badge. That's the only thing preventing these evil people from just rolling over you like a goddamn wave. You and your family, taking everything you're going, taking everything you have, taking it all from you, and not blinking an eye as they do it. I tell you what, if that happened, something like I just pointed out, if that happened, you would start seeing things change in this country pretty quick. Someone, I think Sargon just popped into the chat. Yeah, I did. Okay. Somebody in the chat's like, yeah, you better keep the cops on the force or on the beat because I'm out there. That's nice. Good role playing in the chat. That's funny. Let's see here. Getting back to the super chats. Sorry, I've been ranting and not going through these. Prince of Conquest says compromise might as well be appeasement when one side will keep asking for more and more in bad faith. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we just can't appease these people anymore. You can't. We have to be in a position now where we start telling these people no. And full credit to Sargon, unlike me, he actually stepped up. Sargon is the one that's actually gotten involved in politics, and it's on us now to get involved. Because if we don't get involved, I'm telling you, we're going to have more soy boys from 8chan going out there with an AR-15 and blowing a bunch of people away. I'm telling you, that is the future if people like us that are sensible don't actually start getting involved in politics. We're going to have more lunatics out there doing things like that. And I don't want to see a bunch of jihadis in India kill hundreds of people in the name of what happened in New Zealand. Because it's only now there's like ongoing violence in Sri Lanka because of that. And I don't really fault. Well, the thing is that it is a majority Buddhist area, but you have a Christian minority and a Muslim minority that are now battling it out. And I really got to say that, the fault in that regard lies with the Muslims because, I didn't see any Christians in Sri Lanka rolling into mosques, shooting 50 people. That was some random accelerationist, eco-fascist, whatever that even means, in New Zealand. And he wasn't even New Zealand. He was a freaking Australian. So, obviously the problem is that with Muslims, they're just hyper-collectivist. And they just look for a reason. Take that out of context. So there's Will, and he says out of context it'll make you sound bad. I don't think so. I can defend any point I've made in this. Tyler says literally turned into go punch a Fed. Yes. Well, my point is that I just want these people to accelerate on the path that they're already on. You know, for some of these people, there's just no talking them down. So it's like, all right, just get it over with. Go punch a cop. Go get shot in the head. Just get it over with, because that's the path you're on. And nothing I can say or do is going to talk you out of it. And that doesn't mean all progressives, but it does mean guys like that. Guys like that in that video I showed at the beginning of this, who are just one day away, just a bad day away from shooting some cops, trying to kill some cops, and getting shot himself. There's thousands of these people in this country. Thousands. Prince of Conquest, are we finna see John Brown's Crusade Part 2 with the statues? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Willow says face reveal 50K. Face reveal is pretty much going to be when I have $800 to pay for all the shit that I need. Which I don't really know when that's going to ever happen. For Posterity, or Graham, I should say, says so many seem to think that it will be utopia when borders are erased, and especially European ethnic groups are globally mixed and dissolved forever. Well, the thing is that I don't have, and I've made memes about it before, but I don't really have a problem with people having a mixed race family outside of the problem that we currently have with certain people that are mixed race and like just insanely insecure about it. I don't know what it is, whether it's just like they come from families that have like a beta male father. I don't really know, or like an identitarian mother, or vice versa. But there are a lot of people who are mixed race. Obviously, there's plenty enough people that are mixed race and okay, but there are plenty of mixed race people that are just not normal. Like they're just super insecure about it. And it's like, you know, all they do is just like, it's like, wow, there's a fucking victory for the white nationalists and those types, like the white supremacist types. It's like, because they're not in favor of miscegenation, and that's what they say. Like, oh, you know, when you mix race, like the children they can't get past it. They're just, you know, they're, I don't know what exactly how they would term it, but they're conflicted to such a degree that they're basically defective and dysfunctional. And while there are examples of that being true, there are plenty enough examples of that being false. And so that's why I don't agree with their view on miscegenation. I think they are using it cynically, and they don't even do a good job of it, by the way, by pointing out all the easy, like, if you want to have a good example of someone that does it competently, it is Devin Tracy. Atheism is Unstoppable. He's actually shown a bunch of different examples of people that are mixed race that are just freaking nuts. And unfortunately, they've been raised poorly and have been indoctrinated by the far left, and they are just the most radical. And it happened to Sargon one time. He dealt with someone who was like half, mixed race, and they were the most radical person out of the whole group. And that's the thing Devin Tracy talks about, is that like they overcompensate. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the United States becoming, to some percentage, like I don't have any percentage in mind, and I don't think that anyone should who's not like a freaking racial lunatic. That I'm fine with people being mixed race, but it's just a matter of, because it's just going to happen naturally. The more people are around you that are not white or whatever, like if you're a majority black nation and there's more and more people that are not black around you, you are going to have more and more mixed race couples that are going to have more and more mixed race children. It's just natural to the circumstances in which you live. But the problem is that I think the rate of immigration that's happening in the United States is putting pressure on the insecure soy boys that are going out and shooting people. It's unfortunately, it's putting too much pressure on them. And the way to deal with people like that is to basically shout down the people that are also on the far left advocating segregation and against miscegenation, but also that are anti-white. The way that you deal with the white nationalists and the white advocates and the white identitarians and all that, the way you defeat them is by also defeating the anti-white people. When you shout them down and publicly embarrass them and make them look like racists and lunatics like they are, and collectivists and the rest, you suck the wind right out of the sails of the white nationalist types. Then they have nothing. They got nothing then. They got nothing to advocate for but like white pride and nonsense like that. You know, but you have to defeat the people on the other side. You have to. You can't just ignore them or stand alongside them because it's politically correct. You have to advocate against them if you have any principles whatsoever in terms of race. It either matters or it doesn't. You know, so long as you're not a doctor, or medical professor, or professional, etc. Either race matters or it doesn't. And if you agree that race doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter whole cloth. It doesn't matter for blacks, whites, Latinos, anybody. You have to agree to that principle if you believe it doesn't matter. Because, and that begs the question then, well, why do we have affirmative action? Why do we have quotas? Why do we have black colleges? Why do we have, any kind of affirmative action programs at all, private, public sector, whatever? Why do we have Native American enclaves? Why do we have any of those things if we all agree in principle that race doesn't matter? Because we have it enshrined in law that race does matter. So do we agree or disagree? And that's the thing that I don't see anyone, especially as it relates to Native Americans. That is the biggest elephant in the room on race. Because they are their own little ethno-states in the United States. Native American tribes are their own little ethno-states. And it's like, oh, I'm against ethno-states. Yeah, I am. I want to dissolve all the Native American freaking reservations because I'm against ethno-states. I believe that we live in a multiracial society. I don't believe that people should be regarded differently in terms of the law based on their skin color and things that they can't control. Therefore, why do we have special privileges for Native Americans? Because some bullshit happened however many hundreds of years ago between two sides that were at war that had like mutual numbers in terms of casualties at one point. Mutual, hatred towards one another. Mutual barbarity. If you can't even credit all the barbarism that came from the natives, where they garner the name. I mean, it's even in the Declaration of Independence. They're regarded as savages. Do you think they came to that term out of nowhere? It's like the Indians were not the victims in every circumstance. If you have some random guy that victimizes a Native American for being Native American and that being it, obviously then they're the victim. But hundreds of years ago, where it's a war between two defined sides, I'm sorry, but I'm rooting for the United States because I'm an American. And guess what? The examples of what, if we had our own little Wakanda Forever Native American tribe, let's look at any of the examples we have. Canada, the United States, Australia, wherever. Let's take a look at the native populations. Let's see how they're doing. Not well. And they're being given all the privileges and all the freebies possible. In my view, what would help Native Americans would be for them to view their race, their heritage, in the same way that Italians do. Where they get a freaking Italy tattoo on their forearm, and that is it. That's the extent that they see themselves as different from anybody else. To me, that is how you live in a functioning society, and where you treat people fairly, and that race is no longer a big deal. You actually have to make it so in terms of the laws. You can't just state as much, but have in the law that if you are a certain race, you're allowed to have your own little racial freaking ethno-enclave in the United States with your own laws, your own standards, your own freaking problems, and your own privileges that apply to no one else based on race. That isn't fairness. That isn't racial equality. And it's the elephant in the room. It is the biggest elephant in the room in terms of race. People can make all the memes they want to about black people and the despite and all that shit and all the problems we have in the United States. No, I'm telling you, the elephant in the room is not black versus white. It is Native American versus everyone else. in terms of the laws and the standards and the rules and in culture even. Do we believe that race is a big deal or don't we? As a principle, it's the biggest elephant in the room, and I wouldn't give a damn what people thought of me, what they called me. I'd go in front of an audience of 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million people, and I'd say to every single freaking one of them, do we hold to the principle that race is not a big deal or don't we? And if we do, we have these racial enclaves all over the freaking country. Why do they exist? Why do we let them exist? Why don't we ask for them to hold some kind of referendum on dissolving? And if that fails, why don't we just dissolve them? We have the power to do that. We have the authority to do it. Why don't we then just do that? Because they're not helping anyone, including the people that are so-called citizens of that tribe. It's not helping any of them either. Going by the freaking rates of suicide among everything else. Manifest Destiny Part 2. Taco Looker, you're not helping. But yeah, that to me is it might be a political loser, but it's something that I think it's an ugly part of this country. In my view, a really ugly, hypocritical part of the United States that we just have to confront. We're eventually going to have to confront this. Every day that we don't, we're just brushing all the dead Native Americans under the rug. Oh, alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, alcoholism, drug addiction, suicide, just brush it all under the rug. Oligarchy and corruption rampant in every single tribe, brush it all under the rug. All the racial activists running around, demonizing white men, telling them to go back to Europe, like what happened to the Smiler in the Capitol. Every day that we don't address it, we just continue to live in this hypocrisy. So yeah. And that's the thing that I couldn't stand about that incident, the MAGA hat kid, the Catholic kids in the Capitol. It's one of the things I couldn't stand is that, oh, these kids are racist, they're this and that. And it's like you had a Native American activist in the audience screaming at these kids, these children. Go back to Europe. That's just racial hatred. That is just racial hatred. If you say to a black person, go back to Africa, you say to a white man, go back to Europe, that's just racial hatred. That's just racial animus. It's equal. It is equal. I don't give a damn how toothless, how poor, how unemployed the native might be, how much of a victim he is of his own choices. He's as much a bigot as is the freaking redneck. The 5 rednecks, they're going to say the same thing to whoever. It's still bigotry. And yes, the worst of the worst, though, somebody brought up in the chat, Strike Team, it was the Black Israelites. The Black Israelites were way worse than anybody there. But that's understandable if you... I've talked about the Black Israelites on my channel several times in the past, and I even show the video of like white people licking their boots. But they are one of the worst bigoted groups in the United States. Like they're worse than the God hates fags people. They're worse than them. They're actively worse than the God hates fags people. They're freaking awful people. They're insanely bigoted. John Shimcat? Louis, the U.S. is going to implode regardless of what happens in the culture war. It's called the national debt. We have about 10 years. No, I don't agree with that, Tim. There are many things that would have to happen for our national debt to be a serious crisis. Like I do agree that we have to get it in order. I agree, and that it must be shown, it must be demonstrated that our government has the capacity to actually pay down the debt at some point. It has to be addressed at some point. I agree with you, but you're Ocasio-Cortez, we got 12 years, baby. In your case, 10 years. I completely disagree. But I respect that it is a concern of yours, and it is a concern of mine, and it is one of the consistent failures of the Republican Party, who talk about it when there's Democrats in power and never bring it up again. And obviously, Democrats are also doing it right now, cynically. But with the Democrats, like, I don't think at this point in time they actually have the political impetus to actually do anything about it. The Republicans, they do have, like, the base of the Republicans do care. Based on my speaking to just about any Republican I've ever dealt with, the only ones, conservative/Republicans that I've ever spoken to ever that have said they don't care about the debt are the capitalists, are the type of conservative that think the guiding principle of the United States, and people can say whatever they want to with me, this has been my personal experience. The people that I've spoken to that don't care about the national debt are the internationalist capitalist style conservatives, or quote unquote conservative, however you want to think about it. They're the only ones that have said to me that it doesn't matter. Every other conservative I've ever dealt with, even like evangelicals or something like that, I have a family that are evangelicals. They regard it as a serious issue, but they are kind of disillusioned with the party about them actually addressing it. Yeah, somebody, Conserva Republica, whatever your name is, bro. He says, we have more time than 10 years. There's countries with a lot higher GDP to debt ratio that are still functioning. I agree. That's demonstrably true, by the way. And also, the United States, the dollar is incredibly powerful. There's a lot tied to it, many nations tied to it in terms of trade. And also, inflation remains very low. But also, our debt is still very much a commodity that people want to buy. So long as those factors remain true, we can continue to kick the can. But I agree with the original poster that it is subject of concern. And I do think that we should make cuts to at least show we can pay some of it down. You have to at least show off that you have the capacity to pay the debt. Even if it's, let's say it's for one term of a presidency. How many Congresses would it be? I'm not even sure, like, by the ratio, but it would be a single presidential term. Let's put it in that way. That 4 years. 4 years we run a surplus just to show we can do it. That would be my view of it. And I think that that's nuanced. Baczynski says, put cops with long guns to defend unless it's Portland PD, which they'll lick the boots of Antifa. Yeah, and it's unclear whether these police forces are completely, they're actually on board with the ideology, or whether they're just completely cucked by the administration of their area, like the city and the upper brass, because they're separate from the cops on the ground. Reg Show fan says, Louis, sorry you lost supporters. Being right is better. Keep strong, buddy. I love your content and rants. Thank you. It's been a while since I lost supporters. I've gained supporters in the last month or so. Prince of Conquest says, apparently Brittany Venti tried to seduce Nick Fuentes. Alt-right interracial Shada Dojin Wen. What race is Brittany Venti? I thought she was Italian based on her name. I'm not sure what her race is. And plus, Nick white? I don't even know. Graham says, institutions, police of Canada are far left. I can believe it. Your fucking commie human rights committees or commissions or whatever you have up there. You're already in deep in Canada. You're already in deep with those commie commissions. I'm not really sure what you can do in Canada. You would have to basically elect like the next Mussolini, but in Canada standards would be like barely center right, like to the left of Trump even. That would be like Canada's Mussolini. Your country is just so, you default to the left on just in so many ways, in so many regards. It's just pathetic, honestly. I'm sorry. Canada is just really pathetic. And the conservatives in Canada, by the way, are pathetic. They are large, like they make the neocons look like nationalists in the American standard. Like, that's my comparison. Conservatives in Canada are really not good in my view. Baczynski says police striked in Espirito Santo some 2 years ago. Yeah, well, and Baczynski, then you know what happens. And it is, not equal comparison being Brazil versus, United States or Canada, but the result would be the same ultimately. What happens when the police strike? And, I feel sorry for your nation and for that particular area where that occurred, because I imagine in a country that's already very violent that it wasn't particularly peaceful. Patrick says, use the term ethno-narcissism when people push for representation. I'll think about that. It doesn't strike me right away as too brilliant, but I appreciate the thought. Ethno-narcissism. I don't know. I don't know if that would land. Like, I can see the intention behind it, obviously, and the strategy with it, but I don't know if it would land. I think, honestly, one of the biggest, the most successful memes of late has probably been NPC. I think, honestly, that's been the most successful. Clown World, I don't even know how successful Clown World is. Like, it's popular, but I mean, in terms of success, I think NPC demonstrates some real truths about, like, progressives and people that just default to that worldview, is that their beliefs are not their own. And I think that's actually true for a lot of people. And I think that it could be true in terms of the millions. And I don't say that just as a means of dismissing them or whatever, but I am simply saying that there are millions of people whose thoughts are not their own. They're thoughts that other people have implanted in them, and they just go with it because they don't know better. Seeley says, Tommy Robinson for MEP to piss off Muslims. Man, I don't know. Tommy Robinson, he's been suppressed to a certain degree, and I saw it posted on his channel, he just got another serious, credible threat against his life. If he wins, man, oh my God, like, I think that will be very dangerous for him. Like, he will be in an open air prison at that point, like, in terms of people wanting to kill him. If he actually achieved even with MEP, which is this useless position, if he achieved political power, I can't imagine what the reaction would be. Who would want to assassinate him more? Antifa, like the communists in the UK, or the Muslims? Who would want to kill him more? Because there would definitely be some people wanting to kill him, and there are right now, but more so if he achieves some kind of political power. The opinionated one says, I've been waiting to find a solution to the Native American situation since college. I've thought about reaching out to some natives I know. My concern is people claiming racism when I'm trying to help. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't, if you know some natives, one of the biggest things that I regret doing is not staying in touch with the native kids that I was friends with in high school, just so I can have some person's thought on this and have it be that we already have an existing relationship where they don't think that, like, I am a freaking racist. Because that for a lot of people, man, they just default to that. Like, if you start questioning too much the status quo, they just default like, oh man, you're a radical, you're crazy, you're a racist, you're this. And it is just because our media is yet to collapse. When the media collapses, I think a lot of the ugliness in this country and many of the countries in the West, it's just going to be confronted at that point. It's just going to be staring us in the face. We won't be able to get around it anymore. And I think at that point, they're going to try to fight to deny reality and fight to ignore it. But at that point, I don't think it's going to be ignorable anymore. And that's the reason why, in some ways, Sargon was destined for politics. I don't say that term to make it seem messianic or something like that. But I meant to say that if it wouldn't be Sargon, it would be somebody else, and it would just be that it's his confrontation with the shield between the everyday person and reality. And that's what the media is. The media, I know he says that they're like the shock troops for, political establishment, and that is true. But I think that the press in many ways now are the layer between the public and reality. And that the press not only puts a glossy image on American society, also does left-wing advocacy seemingly always, and regardless of what outlets. Even with Fox News now, like, man, Fox News now, outside of some boomers, like, it's just either Tucker Carlson or people that are like never Trumpers. Like, it's crazy. But the media, in essence, fifth estate, fourth estate, either way, they're doing everything in their power from having people confront the fact that, like, there's a deep rot in all of our countries, and eventually we're just going to have to face it. We're just going to have to face the fact of, like, there's a certain percentage of people that, like, they don't believe in the founding values of, regardless of what nation we're talking about. Like, they don't want, they don't believe in the Bill of Rights. They don't believe in fair treatment. They believe in discrimination. They believe in segregation. They believe in racial discrimination. They believe in all these things that are just a red line for a lot of people. Like, if some person says, like, oh no, we're going to ban all guns and we're going to have confiscation, like, I'm going to side with the people that shoot the people that come to take the guns. Like, I'm not saying that I'm going to do it, but I am going to say that I will sympathize and ultimately side with the people that say government has turned tyrannical and they're coming to deprive me of my liberty, and I'm just going to shoot. And it's like, well, I have to say that you have been given a right to that firearm, and the government is in no position to take it from you. The purpose of the government is to guarantee our rights. That's the purpose of it existing, is to guarantee the rights in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights, obviously. That is the point. And if the government betrays that and ultimately becomes an agent in and of itself to oppress the people, then it no longer has any what's the phrase? It means point of existing. It's not fit for purpose. That's the point. And, it doesn't matter whether it's that or whether it's, the removal of the First Amendment, jailing people for their opinions like that, or if it's like, I'm obviously against mass surveillance and the way that it's conducted. But let's say like that it got even worse. Let's say, the problem is that we just have people in this country that just fundamentally disagree with all of our beliefs, regardless of whether, you're whatever and I'm whatever. We all ultimately agree that we have these rights and they should be protected, and we all hold them, and that should be respected. There's people on the other side that don't respect any of that. Like, they have no they'll scream about fairness and equality. They don't believe in any of that. They just believe in power for themselves and fuck the rest of us. They want to be our aristocracy in the Greek sense. Like, they want to just tyrannize all of us and just rule over all of us and oppress us all in the name of some greater utopia, some greater ideal or vision for their society. And they don't give a goddamn what the means are to get to that. And that's the fact. And eventually we're just going to have to address those people. We're going to have to address them being in our society. Because the right-wing dickhead, the redneck, the Christian, the whatever, like, we might disagree with them, but so long as they agree that they're going to defend our rights and that, we're mutually going to defend our rights, and the point of the government is not to oppress us, it's to guarantee our rights. So long as we agree, we're fine. But the fact is that we got people in this country, and I don't know how many people there are. It could be 1,000. Well, there's more than 1,000. It could be 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know how many people are in this country that fundamentally think that the Bill of Rights was a mistake and that it needs to be, all of them need to be repealed in the name of equality. And the fact is that, and the thing is with guns, and this is with the Democrats, is that, like, ultimately, I think most of the people like Pelosi, I think ultimately they understand that in the United States specifically, like that is the hot button for most of the right. That if you were ever in a situation where, like, let's say you had the passing of the law or a revocation of the Second Amendment, and the government started like just raiding houses and trying to take guns from people, that's a civil war. That is just the civil war. Boom, bing, bam, boom, done. We're in the midst of a civil war right then and there. So they can play with fire and say all the, we're going to ban semi-automatics and all this stupid nonsense. And some of them do want that and actually believe in it. But people, I think, like cynical actors like Nancy Pelosi, they understand that they will never achieve that without sparking a civil war. And I don't actually think they want that. I think with Nancy Pelosi, she just wants to cling to power for as long as possible until she dies. That's what I think she wants. But like I say, we're eventually going to have to address the fact that there's a lot of people in the United States, however many, that fundamentally believe that the Bill of Rights is null and void and it needs to be removed. And what are we going to do with those people? What can we do with them? I would imagine that what should be done, if you were to ask me what should be done with those people, it should be harsh social stigma. That should be the response to people that advocate against the First Amendment, against the Second Amendment, against civil liberties in general. People that run around talking about whatever justification they have for removing rights, those people should be shouted down harshly from everyone. And anyone in my position would be, if you have somebody that goes, well, I don't know, maybe we should have some compromise, say, just call them a sympathizer, because that is what they are. Because if they're in any way considering the removal of rights, they are sympathetic with the communists. They are sympathetic with the people that want to remove rights. And I'm sorry, like, in a free nation, like, how can that be abided by? How can you just side with those kind of people? How can you just agree that that is a legitimate position to remove people's rights? I just don't understand. It's the whole thing over gun control. The only reason why we have not gotten down to pay dirt of the irreconcilable differences is the glossy veneer that has been put onto it by the media, Fourth and Fifth Estate. That is why we have not actually had a real head-to-head on this particular issue. It's because of the media. They're doing everything in their power to keep the public at large away from the truth of the matter, from the reality of the situation, which is the people advocating for the revoking of this right are just anti-civil liberties activists. They are people that actively want to remove your rights. They're not trying to save kids. They're not trying to do this or that. There are some idealists that are morons, but the people that are out there advocating this and are doing it in terms of professional activism, they're simply they are anti-civil liberties activists. They are attempting to revoke your rights. And how is there any justification for that? Simple Jeremy says thoughts, spelled like thought, is on Martina Markota, conservative burlesquer. I didn't know she was involved in burlesque. I might have to poo-poo that. Because I don't really like burlesque. For a couple reasons. And I won't specify why, because that might get some people tipping their fedoras at me. I didn't know that, and I have to say that's disappointing. Because I don't mind like her being like whatever she says, like goth conservative. I don't mind that. You can be eccentric, but I have to say that she's entitled to do whatever with her time. But I don't like burlesque. Let's put it like that. Josh Friedman says, was FDR America's gateway drug to socialism, or was it genuine concern for the disaffected? I would say that with FDR, it was largely expedience to the degree of this, like for example, he wasn't highway system. That was oh God, not Truman. Was it Truman? Who was somebody in the chat shouted out? Who started the highway initiative? Was it Truman? Or was it Eisenhower? Eisenhower? Somebody say it in the chat. Was it Trudeau or Trudeau? It was Eisenhower? Okay, yeah. But that's the thing. Even with Eisenhower was he was a Republican. He was a conservative. But that was still a huge public works program. And do you think that it's because, Eisenhower was a socialist, or do you think it was expedience? It was necessity. It was, well, we have this issue of transportation. The highway system would solve that. Boom. Let's build it. I don't think that him doing that was necessarily ideological. And with FDR, I think that some of it was ideological. There were many examples of him being a cynical, power-hungry actor, like trying to stuff the Supreme Court, and other such examples of clinging to power in the 4 terms. Although I would defend that in a situation of the war, that it is defendable, and I'm not an advocate of the 2-term presidency. I think that constitutional amendment was, what would I say? Not necessarily misinformed, not even misconstrued, ill thought, maybe. I don't think it was thought through well enough. I think that as it relates to FDR, I think it was people that were afraid that it would empower their opposition too much, or it would give too much power to the presidency. It would make too much of a cult of personality, because FDR still to this day is a cult of personality around him. It definitely came out of the Great Depression. He had a cult of personality around him, especially among the silent and even the boomer generation. Less so with the boomer, more so with the silent. But I would say that he was a kind of a mixed bag. I do think there were aspects about him that were ideological, but if you look at his actual history, he didn't appear to be like a foaming at the mouth socialist. He didn't seem particularly ideological, at least from my sense of him. He just seemed to be a politician who liked power and did get us through the war. I think regardless of how you feel about him, we got to give him that. He did see us through the war, and it's a war in which we won. And ultimately, he wasn't forced out of power. He died in his 4th term. Yeah, Nicolo said it in the chat. He was a pragmatic authoritarian. I'd agree with that. I would agree with that assessment, that he was a pragmatic authoritarian. I don't think that. No, I wouldn't say no, because I don't think that. I don't agree that it was him that was responsible for shifting American politics to the very far left. Dude, there were anarchists and communists and socialists before FDR. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to say that he's responsible for the shifting of American politics. The far left already existed before him. So I don't agree with that. FDR prevented full-on socialism, communism with his reforms largely. We took 1 step back, in a sense, to go down 2 steps forward. Yes and no. Yeah, people, yeah, I see people debating it in the chat. I agree. Somebody in the chat said Woodrow Wilson was a globalist. He might have been. All I know is I have to look it up, but I'm trying to remember who the president was that instituted. I'll look it up. President that instituted income tax, because I think in some ways, the president that if you want to say who radicalized certain people, I think that whichever president instituted the income tax, I think they radicalized the right in this country. The capitalists, particularly. Who was it? 1913, the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution ratified, authorizing Congress to impose a tax on income and instituted the IRS. So 1913, who was that? It was proposed by Taft. Okay, but who actually signed it? Was it Truman? No. No. Hold on. What the fuck is with this article here? I'll just look at the chat. Who did it? Name the guilty party, chat. Who did it? Because I don't see it here. It was proposed by President Taft in 1909. Was not ratified until 1913. How was it ratified? Was it just the Congress? Let me see here. Adaptation. Oh, it was Woodrow Wilson. It was Woodrow Wilson. Taft proposed it. 2% federal income tax on corporations by the way of an excess tax. Well, corporation tax is not the same as income tax. That's corporate income tax. I mean the income tax. Federal income tax. Wow, this was run on? I didn't even know that. This was run on like a presidential election. That's crazy. I guess Taft takes most of the blame. But in any case, the point in me raising that is I think the income tax radicalized capitalists in the United States. I think that it created maybe not necessarily objectivism. That's not true. Internationalist. I would say that the income tax in the United States in part radicalized capitalists to become the internationalist capitalists of today. That's what I would say. People are, I see everyone in chat beating up on Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, okay. Do I have an opinion of the Mississippi state flag? Do you think I should get rid of it? I don't give a damn about the Mississippi state flag. I'm freaking New York. What do I care what their state flag is? People in Mississippi can determine their flag. And I would say that if any communist comes up and proposes some bullshit instead of it, I would say that, I would back the conservatives or the nationalists or whoever that would say fuck off. I'd agree with the people telling them to fuck off. Because I think the people of Mississippi shouldn't have their history changed and their symbology changed, and what makes them Mississippian should be changed in the name of communism. Oh, people! I just realized what you mean by a bunch of people in the chat were shitting on FDR for the National Firearms Act. Was that the banning of machine guns? Federal Firearms Act. 1938. Gun manufacturers, importers, and persons in the business of selling firearms. The term Federal Firearms License, FFL, which is like, I think it's what a dealer's license is. Yes. Okay, that prohibited machine guns. Or it's subject to them to a tax, restricted importation, and regulated interstate transportation of. Yeah. Was that in response to, well, supposedly in response to, well, I guess I won't speak to what it was in response of. But yeah, I would say, I don't really know how popular it would be at this point in history to say that I'd be willing to entertain the removal of the Federal Firearms Act of 1938. Because, why not? It is a right. It is a right to own and possess, to possess a firearm. It is a right. And it was signed in the law in 1938 by FDR. Yeah, I'd be willing to say that we could see whether we want to keep this or get rid of it, because I don't really know at this point what difference it would make. It would just be like the gun collectors that would really want it more than anyone, and the people that care about it, the Second Amendment as a civil liberty, they would care. But it would probably, the people that would like the removal of this the most would probably be collectors. In which case, like, I'm not aware of any collector that's gone postal and has killed a bunch of people. I'm not aware of any. Gun collectors seem to be just people that make guns a hobby in the same way as cars are a hobby for some men. It's overwhelmingly men that are gun collectors, as far as I can tell. So I wouldn't have a problem with entertaining the removal of that, because I don't really see the purpose at this point. We don't have a particularly big problem with gangsters running around the streets of New York City with Tommy guns. I can't imagine what the problem would be nowadays when you can go out and buy an AR-15 and commit as much carnage as you want, or be the guy in Vegas and have a hunk of plastic on the back of your legally purchased firearm and just shoot down a whole mob of people. Like, there's nothing you can really do to prevent that if you're just going to have one guy go haywire one day in his 50s and do all that. If that's exactly what happened, then I don't know. That's just the story that we have so far. But the greater examples, I guess, would be the soy boys that run around and kill a bunch of people in just random violence. It's like, if you got rid of that act, there would be no difference. They would have access to automatic firearms that would be less accurate. That would really be the difference. Now the mafia, Tara says, now the mafia just runs Fortune 500 companies and hides their monies overseas. I know what you mean by that, Tara, but no, the mob does still technically exist. They're just pathetic now. They don't really do anything. They're just like, they're in fact like really old, really small gangs that like latch themselves onto like mom and pop businesses and like a couple unions, and occasionally they steal some shit and shoot each other, and that's about it. They still exist. They don't really do anything anymore. But that is the success of a variety of different, law enforcement initiatives and laws and powers of surveillance and that sort of thing. But also, legalization of things. And that would include automatic weapons. If you legalize automatic weapons, then you just lost that black market. No, I don't actually support people owning nukes, because all I'm going to say is this. In the United States, if you support someone owning a firearm, and I do, so long as you're a citizen, do you support Muslim Americans having access to nuclear weapons? I don't. I certainly don't, because I think we'd all know. And the thing is, I have my problems with New York City, but we'd all know what would happen in New York City if we had access, if people had access to nukes. Oh, the Geth? What did I miss? Oh, sorry, the Geth. See, this is what I mean. I'm trying. The Geth says it also restricts suppressors, which is stupid. It restricts suppressors, really? That's stupid. Short barreled rifles. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right, because then they're technically modified. Yeah. I didn't even know that's where it came from. And shotguns and more. Well, the point of shotguns is the ability to conceal them. And I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about that. Because because there's technically a difference between modification and owning something. Because while I do think that people should be totally allowed, like the whole high capacity magazine thing, I think is a huge red herring. Filing down of barrels of rifles or hacking them off or cutting off of the stock in the the thing is that I guess if they're going to be used for ill-gotten means, that it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter that much, because even if you were to do it illegally, it's very likely to be in a crime anyways. So what's it even matter if it's the full length or not? Like if you're using a gun for an illegal act, like it's the illegal act, and it would be like saying that you can't modify a hammer. Like what's the difference? So long as you're using it for a crime, it's the crime that matters, not what you're using to commit the crime. So yeah, I would say that there is a technical difference, but I would say that so long as it is your property, like why shouldn't you have the right to modify it, being that it is your property? So I would say maybe there could be some qualification in terms of sale, because I'm not really sure what that would mean in terms of the price, or whether it would qualify. Like what would it qualify as exactly? Like would it then be would it still be a rifle or a shotgun, or would it be a modified rifle or shotgun in terms of sale? What would it then technically be? But maybe that's too specific. But I think my point is that so long it's if it's your personal property, I don't really think modifying a rifle or a shotgun would be that big of a deal. Outside of the only exceptions I would make would be if you modify a weapon that makes it far more prone to misfire or a mishap, or some like filing down the firing pin or what have you. Something, if you were to modify your firearm in a way that makes it increasingly likely that it could discharge without meaning to, accidental discharge, like maybe then I could see that would be a regulation to keep in place. But in terms of the actual barrel or stock, I don't really know what difference that would make, and also the fact that it's your own property, so you should have a right to do what you want with it. The only case in which I would disagree would be that if we're talking about cars. I think that modifications in terms of cars and that can be annoying, and that's fine. Like the mufflers that people have in their cars, but the things that I don't like about the modifications is like you start taking off doors, you start taking off like guardrail, like the rails around your vehicle, like start taking off tops, you're taking off seatbelts. Like you just in terms of vehicles, I think that when you modify them too much, you make them more dangerous, and you're not the only person on the street. So that would be a way in which I would say that you have the right to modify your car in any which way you want to, but I don't think that you have the right to drive it on the public street. So I would make that specifically about vehicles, because the thing is with vehicles is that that's one of the greatest sources of injury and death in the United States is car accidents. It's one of the biggest ones for death and injury, car accidents. So particularly with vehicles, I'm fine with regulation on vehicles. I don't think it needs to be taxed to death, and I think that tint should be legal, and I don't like the tint laws. I think those are bullshit. But in terms of removing safety specifications, I'm not in favor of that because there's way too much death and mayhem on the streets as it is. Adherent of Lady of Columbia, some gaming news. Halo Infinite development cost is $500. No way. Halo Infinite development, by the way, great original name, Infinite, is $500 million. Happy because 343 is actually listening to their fans. Also, do you think, how would it reach 500 million? How is it even possible? Like, the most expensive games that I've ever been aware of are like all MMORPGs. Like, I can't remember, but wasn't it like Star Wars: The Old Republic that cost BioWare like $100 million to develop that game? I'd have to look it up. But I remember it cost them like some obscene amount of money to develop that game. They made their money back, but I can't imagine, like, what the fuck would they, especially in a Halo game? Like, I don't even want to really get into it because I'm going to just dump on Halo. But what exactly is your $500 million worth in spending in Halo games? It's certainly not $500 million worth of content in those games. Happy because 343, blah, blah, blah. Do you think America should become more New World, Monroe Doctrine focused? It depends on who's in charge, because I don't trust the neocons. Like, they've only shown themselves to be incompetent. And it's scary in relation to, with the Trump administration, how many neocons he has surrounding him, because, you know, I hear conflicting things about what's going on, but I can tell you that, you know, as bad as people say about Trump and his impulses, like the neocons that are around him are in no way better in terms of their impulses. They're as bad, if not worse. And while I'm not on the side of, you know, free shit Tulsi Gabbard, I do think that, and I'm also not even on like the Ron Paul style, like non-intervention. Like, I do think that the United States should have a serious presence in the world that is not just military. I think that we should be, in fact, spreading our culture across the world and making every country across this world more similar to ourselves, and also in terms of our laws. And I think it would do a lot of good in this world to have every population armed to the teeth. Because then you don't have to fear us, well, you can still fear us invading you. But I think it would do this world a lot of good if you had more armed populations. And you probably have a lot less socialism if you had armed populations. And I think that can only come from a gun culture. And I think that the United States should spread that. I think we should spread that. We should spread free speech and the concept of it, and the ability to say whatever the hell you want, damn the consequences, with some exceptions that are barely worth regarding, such as you go to civil court for defamation, and you can't directly incite a mob, which is whatever. It's like, even there, our Supreme Court is kind of like, well, I don't know if this is really constitutional or not, but okay, let's just keep chipping away. And even with the incitement, which is very limited in the United States, like, even that I think is on shaky ground if you actually read the case law, because it started out like in like just direct incitement you're not allowed to do, and it kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away and chipping away and chipping away, and now it's like, not only do you have to be present, threatening, inciting a mob, they're right in front of you, it's direct actions taken. Like, there's so many factors involved that it just becomes like, okay, we have a case of this happening ever. You know what I mean? Like, it would be such a rare occurrence that this would ever be enforced, that it's like, okay, well, can we just specify that the people involved are guilty, like, because of some other action they took, and they're still within their, free speech rights? I really do think it could be covered under other circumstances of other laws they've broken, like public disorder or breach of the peace, something like that. Like, there are laws where if the cops show up and say, like, they do this a lot more in the UK, where they say, we think that there's going to be some kind of action disperse, leave the area. Cops have the legal authority to say that, so long as you're not on your own property. But if you're in public, they have the authority to tell you disperse, leave the area. And if you don't, you can be arrested. And I think that that's something that should stay, even though obviously people could say, well, I have a right to be in public. But what I'm telling you is that I do think that that should remain, because even though it can be abused, and it is in the UK, that I think it's important to have for the purposes of maintaining order and dispersing violent people. And it's also important for de-escalation, in that if you have two people that want to fight, and I've seen this happen where a cop tried to intervene between like two gangs of rednecks that legit, and it ended in a firefight. The rednecks all shot each other. One of the purposes of direct police intervention is to immediately separate the two parties. And that is one of the justifications cops have to arrest everyone. And I think that there is genuine use for that. And the guest said, "Don't be such a status bro," and Google MK18. What is MK18? Close quarters battle rifle. The close quarters battle rifle is a replacement upper receiver for the M4A1 carbine developed by the U.S. Navy. The CQBR features a barrel, 10.3 is that inches in length, similar to the Colt Commando, a short-barreled M16 variant of the past. Oh, I know what the Colt Commando was. It's a short barrel, like M4 variant, right? Why'd you have me look this up? Isn't the Colt Commando illegal? I'll just Google that. Colt Commando illegal. If I can spell. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Yep. Okay. It's an example of a short barrel rifle that isn't modified. Yeah, I know what the Colt Commando is. Yeah, but it's not legal unless you have like whatever. I guess there is a minimum length for what the barrel has to be. Well, obviously, if somebody said in the chat if it's grandfathered in, obviously if it's grandfathered in, it is legal, obviously. But I mean, how much? I mean, was there that many made that you can actually find one that's not like fucking $5,000 or some shit? I don't know. It's a scary black rifle. I have to admit that. People in the chat talking about firearms, talking about your rights. It's a scary black rifle. That's all I'm saying. I don't think... You know what's funny is that even though this is a newscast, I haven't really talked about any news, and it's also 11 o'clock. When the fuck did I start this? I genuinely don't remember. Could someone shout out when I started this fucking stream? It was around 8:30, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. I guess I'll do a couple articles just to make this an official an actual newscast. Let me find some articles. I got some saved. Let's see here. Let me see. I can't remember. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, you know what? This is some woke shit. This is some woke shit. So this happened, when was this? April 11th. So this is some woke shit, and I'll explain to you why. Tristan says, when you talk about spreading our culture all over the world, that is internationalism, just with us holding the reins. It's not actually internationalism. It is, in fact, like cultural imperialism. And I make, yes, you know, I believe the United States should be the hegemon of the world. I believe the United States is the greatest nation on earth. I don't think there's any nation at this point in time that even can compare with us. Even our predecessors of great nations, like the United Kingdom, are completely fucking cucked. They have no idea what their values are, and they have communists running all over the country. So if it's not us, it's nobody, and there has to be someone. Because when you operate in a unipolar system, when the superstate falls, you know, the superpower falls, that incentivizes every nation that's actively trying to compete with it to step up to that role and do anything that's required to achieve it. And during the Cold War, you're really distracting me with this. During the Cold War, the United States did a lot of evil shit, whether it's to the world, to our own people. We did a lot of shit to win the Cold War and to become the hegemon of the world. And I don't really think that we're, like, out of all the different examples, we're the best. We're the best this world has to offer in terms of who could have been the hegemon. And I think naturally, it is in our interest as both a nation, as the hegemon, and as a moral actor to spread liberty through the world to the blighted, ignorant, shithole nations of the world. And that includes many that are our allies, that are supposedly first world, but are otherwise devolved shitholes. Doesn't mean we're perfect, because we're obviously not, but we're not as bad as those nations. And they could do well to learn by our example and stop being ridiculous and illiberal shitholes. I'm not a neocon because I'm not just considerate about the military. Like, the neocons don't care at all about culture. Change my mind. The neocons don't care at all about culture. They are military autists, and they're also capitalist autists. And while there is truth to economic power, that's one of the 5 factors of national power from a state in terms of foreign relations. They fundamentally don't understand the 5, which I'll just name for you: military, culture, diplomatic, trade. What is the 5th one? This is going to be my, I've said it before, it's going to be my former governor of Texas oops moment. Military, culture, economic, diplomacy. What's the last one? Somebody shout it out. What am I forgetting here? It's not waifus. Economic. What is it? Not technology. Not religion. Oh, this sucks. I hate it when I forget shit. Let me think. Military, economic, cultural, diplomatic. Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's 4 and I'm just forgetting. In any case, my point is that you have to consider those factors when you're talking about international relations. And as far as I can tell, with neocons, It is that they only regard military and economic. Those are the two that they only consider. And they're ineffective. And so to me is like once your ideology proves that it doesn't work, you can be discarded. You can be completely disregarded, and your ideology can be discarded, and no one should take you seriously. And I think that with the neocons, they've already shown themselves to be that. And in my view, I think that our greatest issue that is a problem in the world isn't military. Like we're number one. No one can compete with us militarily. It's culture. I think that is our greatest failure. That even economically, we're doing good, but culturally, I think we're getting freaking demolished. I think that, and I've already talked about this enough in the past. You know, you can go back and listen to my older commentaries and streams where I've talked about this. But that to me is the biggest failure of the United States, and I don't think neocons have any fucking answer. Anyways, my God, I got fucking distracted. Show you this article. I think that was a troll question because people know I'm such a freaking foreign relations autist. You get me tripped up. So this article came out and it just it got a lot of shares, but like I don't think people actually understood like the glaring freaking thing in this. So what happened was the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, who I think is like a Democrat partisan, because I've seen him try to like in testimony try to help the Democrats, even though they're like trying to shame him. He's like sitting there trying to help them, like walk them through their rhetoric just because they're so retarded. So I think he is a Democrat partisan, but it was the House of Representatives, the Financial Services Committee. That's right. This fucking fatso woman, Mrs. Porter, which is funny because she's portly, but also frustrating because that's the name of Mel Gibson's character from oh my God, Payback. And she's doing a great disservice to that great name. So this portly woman was grilling the congressman about like this hypothetical woman that worked for JP Morgan Chase, who lives in New York City, by the way. But we're going to listen to this video, and I want you to really think about this, all right? And I promise you, I will not spoil this. I just want you, Porker, Jesus, chat. Just think about this, okay? Big think. Just think. Think outside the box. Like, what's a glaring thing?
So where we left off was this woman had, and I apologize, you're going to need to follow orally. She had $2,425 a month. She rents a one-bedroom apartment. She and her daughter sleep together in the same room in Irvine.
What? Let's listen to that description again.
$2,425 a month. She rents a one-bedroom apartment. She and her daughter sleep together in the same room in Irvine, California. That average one-bedroom apartment is going to be $1,600.
It was California, not New York City. I'm sorry. So the state with even higher, even more out of control real estate market.
$100. She spends $100 on utilities. Take away the $1,700, and she has net $725. She's like me. She drives a 2008 minivan and has.
Oh. Bro, you're a fucking member of Congress and you expect me to believe that you don't have money for a new vehicle? Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, you make like 100-something thousand a year and all your staff is paid for. So fucking spare me, dude. Sorry.
Has gas, $400 for car expenses and gas, net $325. The Department of Agriculture says a low-cost food budget, that is ramen noodles. A low food budget is $400. That leaves her $77 in the red. She has a Cricket cell phone, the cheapest cell phone she can get for $40. She's In the red, $117 a month. She has after-school childcare because the bank is open during normal business hours. That's $450 a month. That takes her down to negative $567 per month. My question for you, Mr. Diamond, is how should she manage this budget shortfall while she's working full-time at your bank?
Stop. So we got a question asked. Now I want everyone in the chat. I want everyone in the chat to have a big think. I want you to have a big think. What can she do? What can she do? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's an answer. I don't think there's an answer. But by the way, people in the chat doubting your story, let's just take this at face value that it's true. Take it at face value that it's true, all right? And let's say she can't move out of California. Stop. People are coming up with some reasonable alternatives. No. She can't move. She is chained to her house that's like a freaking cardboard box that costs her $4,000 a month because it's in fucking California. What can she do? What can she do? I don't know. Let's listen to what Jamie Dimon says in response. No, stop saying to move out of California.
I don't know that all your numbers are accurate. That number is generally a starter job?
She is a starting employee. She has a 6-year-old child.
Okay,
This is her first job.
And you can get those jobs out of high school.
Whoa! Big think, ladies and gentlemen. This is her first job. This is her first job, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I got this thing at the tip of my tongue. I just don't know. What can she do? What can she do? This is her first job and she's making $20,000 a year. What can she do?
School, and she may have my job one day. So
She may, but Mr. Diamond, she doesn't have the ability right now to spend your $31 million.
What?
Sympathetic.
Oh my, like, I'm about to fucking rage out and just scream. Like, she doesn't have the capacity to do your job. Why is that? Why not? How come? Why is that? Why is it the case she can't do Jamie Dimon's job? Is there some impediment to her doing it? What is it?
She's short 567. What would you suggest she do?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Would you recommend that she take out a JP Morgan Chase credit card and run a deficit?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Well, I mean, dude, he runs a bank. Yes. The answer is yes. The bank wants her to go into debt so that they can juice her for the rest of her life using interest. So yes, they do in fact want her to do that, but don't ask fucking leading questions like that. Or loaded questions, actually, not leading.
Would you recommend that she overdraft at your bank and be
Well, yes and no. They want you to pay, but they also like collecting those fees.
charged overdraft fees?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
So I know you have a lot
I'd love to call up and have a conversation about her financial affairs and see if you could be helpful.
See if you can find a way for her to
I got a way, bitch. I got a way. I know a way. I don't want to spoil it yet, though.
less than the minimum that I've described.
Just be helpful.
Well, I appreciate your desire to be helpful, but what I'd like you to do is provide a way for families to make ends meet so that little kids who are 6 years old living in a 1-bedroom apartment with their mother aren't going hungry at night because they're $567 short from feeding themselves, clothing them. We allow no money for clothing. We allow no money for school lunches. We allow no money for field trips, no money for medical, no money for prescription drugs, nothing. She's short $567 already. Mr. Diamond, you know how to spend $31 million a year in salary, and you can't figure out how to make up a $567 a month shortfall. This is a budget problem you cannot solve.
It's not a budget. It's not a budget problem for them. It's not. Oh my fucking God. Okay, I want to listen to that one more time, just so you understand, okay?
Mr. Diamond, you know how to spend $31 million a year in salary, and you can't figure out how to make up a $567 a month shortfall. This is a budget problem you cannot solve.
It's not his problem. It's not his problem. It's not the problem of JP Morgan Chase. I hate that bank. They're one of the banks that got bailed out. Fuck them as a bank. Fuck Jamie Dimon. Okay? This isn't his problem. So the question is, well, Louis, you think you're so fucking smart. You think you're so fucking brilliant.
Stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop.
Well, I just spoiled it. God damn it. I was trying to set that up and I fucked it up. Point is, truth is, coming right at you, get a fucking man, bitch.
Coming and they don't stop 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 coming.
Okay. Yeah, I saw this article and it took me a second. Like I listened to it because it went viral the day that it went out. And I was like, I thought about it for a minute. I'm just like, why doesn't this bitch just find a husband? Like she's just done with her education. This is her first job. She already has a kid. It's like, well, what the fuck do you want JP Morgan Chase to do? Is it too late for an abortion, bitch? Get a man. Get dual income. You know, these are the consequences of your actions. JP Morgan Chase is in no position. Like, JP Morgan Chase is not going to play the daddy. It's not the father. The state is not the father. The father's the father. Where the fuck is he? So, yeah. Get a fucking boyfriend. Get a father. You know, find someone who's going to take care of your stupid ass. And there you go. Now you don't have a budget problem anymore. Wally World says, got a light, then what good are ya? That's a quote. That's a quote from Payback. And I don't remember the name of the character. It's like the character that rips off Porter. And he shoots him. Baczynski says, press X to doubt. Baczynski also says her cardboard box is chained to Joseph Fritzl's basement, so I agree it's kind of hard to move. It's got to be some kind of like reference. Euro says Irving is expensive. Tell that bitch to go to the Redlands. It's not that hard to buy a freaking $1,500 piece of shit car that runs just fine. Yeah, cars, you know, I have to say that repairing vehicles can definitely set you back a lot of money, but yeah, I agree. Josh Freeman says she must pay a 90% tax rate for free education. Yeah, you know, the thing is about education is that, like, yeah, we need more money for education. It's like, really? Because the public schools are kind of shit and falling apart. And in all the big cities, they have like a fucking 75% dropout rate. It's like, yeah, they just need more money. That's going to solve it. Oh, man, I'm convinced. I'm sorry for those of you that are convinced by we just need the public education system with the Marxist teachers unions. They just need more money. They need more of my money to operate. You got me. I gotta just concede that one. Let me find another link to talk about. Oh, here's a good poll. Here's a good poll from Pew. Let me save that. Says that most Americans agree that colleges should not consider race or ethnicity in admissions. And this is from February. And what's really weird is, actually, I think the Asians, I don't know if the Asians actually qualified as a statistic or a scientific statistic, meaning over 1,000 sample. But yeah, percent say that race or ethnicity should be a factor in college administrative admissions decisions. So 73% of all adults said it should not be a factor. 19% of people said that it's a minor factor, and 7% should be a major factor. So that 7% are the irredeemable people in this society that should be condemned. White people were the biggest people that said it shouldn't be a factor. Surprisingly, Asians were the most in favor of it. So as much as people want to dump on blacks, Asians are actually one of the biggest people that say it should be a factor. And what's funny is that they're being discriminated against. So Asians are their own worst enemy as it is in time, this moment in time, in terms of college admissions. Maybe they should get off the woke brigade. Maybe they should stop doing that. And unsurprisingly, 85% of Republicans said it should not be a factor. 12% were limp dick cucks, and 4% were irredeemable people that should be cast out of the party. And thankfully, in the Democrats, you have 36% that are irredeemable, and then you have a majority, 63% of Democrats that say it should not be a factor. So even though people like to say the Democratic Party is lost, at least in this way, it is something that there's the majority of Democrats, 63%, say race should not be a factor in admissions. And all then you have to do is extrapolate that same principle to everything else. Quota hires and all the rest of it. Representation. The principle should be allowing freedom, not mandatory quotas for whatever. And so we got other things here, other factors that were polled. And let's see, we got high school grades, and 67% say they should be a factor, a major factor. Standardized test scores, that's a slim majority, I guess you could say, with major, minors 40, so it's most. 88% of people think that it should play some role. Community involvement, that seems to be pretty split, with 30% that say not a factor, 21% that say major factor, and 48% that say minor. And I would agree more with not a factor, because community service doesn't mean shit. Unless it's like your particular field or something. Being first person in the family to go to college, and 53% say not a factor. And even though this is more class-based, I would agree that it shouldn't be a factor. I think meritocracy should win out. And there's community colleges, all right? I went to a community college for 2 years. It was good. I liked it there. I learned a decent amount. It wasn't like as good as a university, but it also didn't have as much cancerous SJWs. Athletic ability, 57% majority say it should not be a factor. And this would be, I'm surprised this isn't more controversial because of how much weight there is on college sports. Whether a relative attended the school, a heavy majority, 68% said that it should not be a factor. But the fact is that in relation to donors, it always will be, especially at private universities. So regardless of how people feel, like nepotistic, admissions will always happen with rich or donor alma maters, or alumni, I should say. Alma maters. That's how that's how I went to a college. Race or ethnicity, 73% say no factor, not a factor at all. 73%. Dead last, gender. 81% of Americans say that gender should not be a factor in college admissions. It's only 19% that say it should. And so when people say that like anti-SJWs, anti-feminists can't succeed in politics, all you have to do is just look up what's already popular and find what's already popular and also coincides with what you believe, and use gender as the launching point for everything else that is not as popular, and just argue it from a point of principle. Because then people say, oh, well, he believes these other things, but it's like, yeah, but he believes that as a principle. It makes it much easier to defend someone if you take a popular position and use that as a point of principle in argument for your vision as a politician and what you'd like to do in terms of legislation or in an executive role under your authority in that position. So here's some light at the end of the tunnel, that a majority of Americans are in many ways sane in relation to at least university enrollment. And all you need to do is get them, catch them by the scruff of the neck and say, okay, why not employment? Why not the rest of society? Why not sports? Why not the rest of it? And they go, yes, we agree. Then it's like, okay, well, there's all these crazy commies over there saying the opposite. Let's shout them down. Let's go. Come on with me. We're shouting them down. Let's go, pussy. Come on. You believe as I do, right? Let's go. We're going to shout them down. Got to peer pressure these people. Social stigma. That's the only way we can win this. Let's see here. Brzezinski says, strong women don't need no man, only a collection of men known as the government. Also, please Google Joseph Fritzl. But I'm not doing this on screen in case he's like a freaking Nazi or something. The Fritzl case emerged in 2008 when a woman named Elizabeth Fritzl told police in the town of Amsterdam, Austria, that she had been held captive for 24 years by her father, Joseph Fritzl. Fritzl had assaulted, sexually abused, and raped her numerous times during her imprisonment inside a concealed area, blah, blah, blah. What's the point of this? Let's see here. Well, this is horrific and gross. Okay. I'm not sure why you brought that up there, Brzezinski, but all right. Thanks for that. In any case, let's find another article. I'll probably stop this not too long from now, just because we've been going for 3 hours. I don't like. I got a lot of old links here. Oh man, some of these are so old. I guess we'll do this one while we're talking about that other woman one. Oh god, fuck off. No, go away. Don't make me disable. Fine. This fucking stupid ass thing is gonna make me disable frickin' ad blocker. To view this fucking thing. So this happened in the end of February, where don't play, where a judge, let's see where it was, federal judge in Texas declared that the all-male military draft is unconstitutional, ruling that the time has passed for the debate whether women belong in the military. And based on this, and I haven't seen any follow-up to say whether this has been overruled or this is going to proceed to the Supreme Court or whether it stands, but at least in his ruling that the women are now subject to the draft based on this ruling. is in a federal court in Texas. So unless it's appealed and overturned, or it's debated and it goes to the Supreme Court and they're actually given a ruling on this, that now we can have some strong women in the military to go fight and die overseas for, I don't know, something. Let's see here. I got a bunch of random links here. Oh, yeah. I'll link this one. I talked about it a while ago because somebody asked me about it. But there was this article in the Spectator, the USA Spectator, that is not a great article, but I thought it was hilarious because it's just like directly to the point. It's by Tiana Lowe, where it's just an article called Candace Owens con artist. I don't love the way she thinks, and it just goes through and it just bad mouths her and just says like all the contradictory things she's done, all the bad things she's done. It is a smear piece, but it is pointing out things that she has said and done in the past that are glaring. And I think that this is I do think that she is worthy of criticism. And I saw this article, I read through it, and it's not completely fair, and it is really like harsh in a smear piece, but I liked it. It made me laugh, and I think that she just gets a free pass because she's so useful for many people on the right. I got some articles about Christ Church that I'm not going to talk about tonight, just because one, I don't want to, and two, I don't want the stream to get censored. I got an article here about how Red Dead Redemption Online is fucked, and I haven't played Red Dead Online in quite a while now. It's been like, I think, a month and a half maybe since I played it at all, and it really is just shit at this point. And I don't even know if they've updated it since. I haven't seen anything from Rockstar. They've updated GTA Online a few times. I've not seen anything about Red Dead Online. Let's see here. There's a smear piece about Sargon. It's kind of old. Oh, yeah, I saw there's an article from The Onion that made me laugh. Let me put that up. Try to save this under the right place. So this was another funny article I saw from The Onion called "Historians Uncover Last Socrates Dialogues Where He Just Gave Up and Started Screaming That His Opponent Was a Fucking Brainwashed Shill." Cambridge, Massachusetts, in a landmark discovery that sheds new light on the development of Western thought, historians announced Tuesday they had recovered several lost Socratic dialogues in which the ancient Greek philosopher simply gives up and screams that his debate opponents are all fucking brainwashed shills. In these newest unearthed texts, there are numerous instances in which Socrates accuses his interlocutors of having small penises before going on to claim that he has fucked their wives, says the Harvard University professor Helen Speck, citing dialogues in which Socrates proposes that anyone who disagrees with him is a pathetic piece of shit on the payroll of the Athenian aristocracy. See, he might have actually said that and ought to just kill himself, which I got banned on Twitter for that. We've uncovered many rhetorical tactics previously undocumented in the classic canon, such as Socrates' tendency to scream "fuck you" ad nauseum until his challenger stopped trying to express this viewpoint. We even had contemporaneous accounts suggesting Socrates doxed his opponents, spelled with 2 X's, posting their addresses all over the Acropolis and inciting his followers to harass them. It's pretty amazing to see our culture's philosophical tradition being born here. Speck added that Plato, the most famous student of Socrates, received an education centered around learning to shout a stream of relentless, unsubstantiated libel at anyone he believed to be a giant pussy. So I like this article. I read this article and I laughed because I very much have a soft spot for Athenian, philosophers, and especially Socrates, who I still regard to be the greatest philosopher in human history. So I thought this was hilarious because I wouldn't put it out, because the thing is that Socrates did study. Oh God, what is it called? It's called something. Where you just use conjecture. Somebody say it in the chat. What's it called? It was a field of study in Athens where you'd use conjecture and tactics to win an argument. What is that called? Somebody shout it out in the chat. I forget. Was it rhetoric? Sophistry is right. I guess sophistry then. I'll go with sophistry because that is what it is. But yeah, he did study that. Like, he wasn't an unsophisticated orator. Like, he knew how to argue points. And I think that it wouldn't be beyond him to engage in sophistry to make his point, if not also to make his opponent seem hypocritical. And rhetoric is true, but I think sophistry is the correct way of saying it. But yeah, so while this is like obviously a joke and parody, I wouldn't actually say that this is specifically false about Socrates, because in terms of argumentation, he deliberately would say things that were irrational for the sake of drawing the ire and the reaction from those he was speaking to. So he was very reasonable in terms of argumentation and thought, but I do believe he engaged in rhetoric to make his point. So I wouldn't put it past him to. I definitely wouldn't put him past him to say that his opponents were on the payroll of the Athenian aristocracy. Like, I wouldn't put it past him to actually say that. Because in many ways, the Athenian leadership, the powerful of Athens, they hated him. They absolutely hated him. And it wouldn't be surprising to have people that would... demagoguery. That is the word I was looking for. It wasn't sophistry. It was demagoguery. I wouldn't put it past the Athenian aristocracy to employ demagogues to try to discredit him. Especially, as it related to being, pushed back by the Spartans. At that point, I would see it as something they would do. But in any case, yeah, I thought that was a funny article. Let me see if there's any more that I got in here that'd be worth bringing up. I don't want to talk. I don't know if I really want to talk about Puerto Rico, because fucking Puerto Rico is the biggest sponge that's part of the American system. Like, Puerto Rico has had its hand out after that hurricane or whatever happened. Like, they've been just nonstop, just billions and billions and billions of dollars have been shoveled into that territory, and I can't imagine that any of it is actually going anywhere but to into people's pockets. I have an article about Avenatti getting arrested, which is a while ago. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here's a funny article from Eric Kane. So shout out to Eric Kane. I remember this article. This was from mid-April about this Elder Scrolls cash grab called Elder Scrolls Blades. And so the article is Elder Scrolls Blades has already made $500,000 already. What is wrong with this world? So this is Eric Kane taking the black pill as it relates to gaming. Elder Scrolls Blades is not a very good game. It's a bad game filled with bad monetization practices, which my colleague, Paul Tassi, fuck him, has laid out in great detail right here. Read that. Wag your finger at Paul for spending money on this atrocity. The truly frightening thing we learn about Paul's piece, however, is that despite being one of the worst offenders when it comes to blatant, greedy, game-breaking monetization practices, Elder Scrolls Blades has still reportedly earned over $500,000. People are buying chests to avoid time gates, and because God is dead and rock and roll is dead, democracy is failing and there is no hope. The fact is, we're letting publishers get away with it too. We're buying loot boxes and paying to unbreak games like Elder Scrolls Blades, which was broken by design so that you pay to fix it. We shouldn't be enabling these gross revenue models, but I guess mobile gamers have no shame. Yes, they're consumers. I love to play a decent Elder Scrolls game on my phone, sort of. I mean, I don't usually play mobile games for a whole host of reasons, but if I could, I see myself diving into a Skyrim Lite, especially one that looks as pretty as Blades does. But Bethesda jumped on the mobile game design bandwagon here, and that turns me off instantly. I won't pay a cent to fix a game like this. The game should be enjoyable out of the box. If Bethesda wanted to release a free-to-play mobile Elder Scrolls game, then sell cosmetics, I'd be fine with that. They could probably still make a bunch of money that way, selling armor, weapon skins, pet skins, emotes, and so forth. Alas, this is not the case. For me, Elder Scrolls Chess is a hard pass. Hopefully, Bethesda's next release, Rage 2, will be a step in the complete opposite direction. I still got hope. I haven't pre-ordered or anything like that. I still got hope for Rage 2. We will see in just about a month when it releases on May 14th, which is it next week? Where the fuck is my cursor? Yes, it's next week. So we'll see. But yeah, good article from Eric Kane. Shout out to him. Eric Kane taking the black pill. Here's another good news. So good news I love how it took 3 hours to actually get to the news. The good news, this came out April 26th. Brazilian government. Jair Bolsonaro, mad lad Jair Bolsonaro, who tweeted out a bunch of anime shit the other day, by the way. Some people are like, is Jair Bolsonaro a weeaboo? And he started tweeting out a bunch of shit about anime. It's crazy. Actual mad lad Jerry has started to defund philosophy in public universities. Philosophy and sociology. Just straight up defunding it. And I know how people can say that there is defensive philosophy, and I agree. I think some of the best things that I've learned in my life have been from philosophers, like actual philosophers. I think it's been worthwhile. And in some ways, reading the Apology of Socrates and reading different segments of Nietzsche have changed my life and the way that I think. But ultimately, you can learn that on your own time. You can go read a book. There's like tons of books of like, what are they called? It's like where they take chapters from, like, let's say Nietzsche. They take snippets of Nietzsche's works and they just, combine them into one book. His big theories, like all the big theories that he's created, like, the Übermenschen versus the Untermenschen, will to power, like all the big God is dead, like all the big concepts of Nietzsche. They've taken all those and combined them and condensed them into one book. I wouldn't argue that you should use that as the sole basis of your understanding of Nietzsche's works. You should just read the works, as hard as they are to read. But even if you just got to do that, you could save yourself thousands of dollars, not go to college, and just read those books, and it'd be worthwhile. So yeah, obviously, I gotta say that this is a step in the right direction, as it was with Japan, as it was with Poland, as it was with Hungary, as it was in Brazil, as it is wherever it's being done. This is the right thing to do. So tip of the hat to Jair Bolsonaro, who's a bigger cultural warrior, as far as I can tell, than Donald Trump. And I've made a video calling Donald Trump a cultural warrior. Jair Bolsonaro, man, he's got the biggest balls in Brazil, as far as I can tell. You know, he got stabbed, he got back up, and now he's just laying waste to the communists in his own country. Tip of the fedora. Yep. People in the chat are celebrating him. Why is this a good thing? Because this is the source of a great deal of the problem that most of the far left activists that we're having to deal with, regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's gaming, comics, in culture, or if it's in politics, people on the ground, Antifa, and all the rest, the majority of these people are being radicalized in college. Whether it's the United States, Canada, UK, anywhere in the Western world, or even in Japan, the primary source for the activists that are on the ground are from being indoctrinated in universities. And they are being indoctrinated in the soft sciences. So sociology and anything that falls in that, political science, philosophy, anything that revolves in, it's in the soft sciences. That's the source of a great deal of the radicalization on the left. And when you get rid of these people, you get rid of all these professors, then you get rid of the source. It's not the only source, bear in mind, but it is a big source. In Canada, the United States, we're talking about every semester, thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of radical activists are being just churned in every major university. They're just being churned out, put out into the public. And they have no financial viability to actually have a career, so all they're left with is their activism. And that's what they do. And that's not good. So it's a good thing to defund these programs, fire these professors, and it's like, you know, two birds with one stone. You prevent people from making bad choices and having degrees where they rack up tens and tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt that they'll never be able to pay off because they don't actually have a degree that can pay them anything they can get a job in. And you get rid of the ideologues that are indoctrinating young people. So yeah, this anywhere this happens, it's a blow to the left. Bear that in mind. It's one of the reasons why they're so protective about this. And I think that the United States, if it ever happened, that would be a real tipping point. And that's why I don't even like why do you think that in Poland they understand this? Why do you think in Brazil they understand this? Jair Bolsonaro gets into power, first term, first year, boom, just does this. This is one of the first fucking things he does. Why? Why did the guy in Hungary do it? Why did the guy in Poland do it? Why did Japan finally do it? Why is this what they're doing? Just ask yourself that. Why? Now, when you have that in mind, ask yourself, why aren't we doing it in the United States? Why aren't the Republicans doing this? Why didn't the Republicans do this when they controlled the White House, Senate, and House? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't the Republicans do this? Why not? Big think. Big moment. Why didn't the Republicans take care of this? Are they just too retarded? Is that the thing that I must conclude? That our elected leaders worth millions and millions of dollars are just all freaking retarded? Well, that's the thing. People are saying they've actually experienced socialists, and they're afraid. And that is true, but I mean, if you were to get, like, if I were to be conspiratorial, I would say that some Republicans, they want this. They like these radicals because it makes it easy to run against them. That's what I think. I think there's I won't say however many Republicans think this way, politician-wise, but I do think that there's a decent number of Republican politicians that like these radical activists because it makes it easy for them to run against them. You don't actually have to stand for anything. You just say, well, I'm a Republican and I'm not this fucking insane communist. Elect me. And I'm sorry, but I'm nowhere near as cynical as allowing our country to fall the fuck apart for the sake of I get to make $100,000 in Congress, and I make some speeches and make money on the side because I do my friends favors and pass legislation that benefits certain people. Yeah, Strike Team 7 said it as well. Useful controlled opposition. I agree. The problem is that I don't think they can control them. I think that there's too many Ben Shapiro's of the world that, they don't really understand. Because has Ben Shapiro called for this? There's people in my that follow me that watch Ben Shapiro. Has Ben Shapiro ever advocated for this? Has Ben Shapiro ever advocated to remove all these, just defund all these programs nationwide? Has he ever called for that? Because I'll call for that right now. I don't give a fuck how many people are put out of a job. All these activist professors. Oh, there's going to be some innocent ones. Yeah, sure. There's always innocence when policy is changed. I don't care. Put them all out. Send them all out to the fucking street to starve and die. Because these people are the primary source of the disintegration of our social cohesion. So I saw 1 no, 2 no's. Somebody say they think he said something similar. I've never heard him say it. So, yeah, I'd have to... Someone can source this. I'm not saying he never said it, but I haven't heard him ever say it. But I'm saying this to you. I'm saying Louis Le Vau 2020. Get me in power, and we'll clean out the universities. I don't know how spicy I want to get with that analogy either. I was going to say something to the effect of, if a broom doesn't work, we'll try a shotgun instead. But that might be a little bit too spicy. That might get me taken off air. And I disavow myself. I disavow that joking rhetoric. You don't need to be violent when legislation will do it. I want everyone to press D for disavowal. Right now. I want everyone in the chat, press D for disavowal. I want everyone to condemn me for that last statement. There's people that saying they aren't going to disavow me. And careful now, you might get banned. I got banned off of Twitter today. Careful now. My disavow is being disavowed. Oh, man. This isn't good. Is typing N censored? I think it might be. I had to approve at least one of those N's. Oh, no. This chat's going to get my channel flagged. Don't. I can't have 2 accounts flagged in one day. Don't do it. And by the way, seriously, don't get my channel flagged. I legitimately disavow what I just said because... Oh, man. Oh, man. You know what? That is a news story. We got a news event. Let me look it up. I'm not spoiling this. Ooh, man, it's so good. It's this week, baby. And I'm hoping my schedule can be conducive for this because I don't know. Because there's an event going on this week, ladies and gentlemen. There's an event, a major event, an event of legend that is happening this week. And I don't really know how many people remember this. I know some people do. A couple people messaged me about this. But something's coming up this week, baby. Something's coming up this week.
This little tree market snowflake would end up here.
Yeah, boy. Something's coming up this week, boy.
Oh. How do you feel?
And, oh, man, I can't wait. Can't wait for this shit. That's right. That's right. May 9th, baby. 2 days, baby. 2 days. Boogie's wake. Fuck off, chat. Oh man, get ready to call the herd, baby. 2 days. Episode 3, 2 days. Oh man, I'm hoping it is as crazy as the last episode. I'm hoping that it tops it. I really am. Like I am genuinely excited. I am genuinely excited to play the 3rd episode because the second episode, dude, was freaking great. It was amazing to stream that. It was so terrible. I'm thumbing this video up right now. Hell yes. Episode 3, 2 days. We're gonna pop. That's when the popping of the collar's happening. That is where it's. I'm gonna go out of my way if it's a nice day like today to wear a polo shirt, and I'm gonna pop that collar when we play that shit. Oh man, I can't wait. 2 days. I have to check my schedule because it's been bouncing around. But oh man, it's gonna. I don't know when I'll be able to stream it. Unfortunately, with my schedule, I can't say. I'm hoping it would be the day of, but I don't know. I don't want to talk about Notre Dame. Oh, here's a funny story for you. Here's a good one. Here's another funny story. And we're gonna have to end this because this is like 3.5 hours. So I saw this story the other day, and this is on One Angry Gamer. So some indie game called Satisfactory became a it became an exclusive to holy shit, there's a lolly right there. It became an exclusive to what's the Chinese platform, Chinese spyware platform? What is it called again? Epic Game Store. That's right. I legitimately forgot what it's called. It became an exclusive to that, and somebody. I love this tweet here. Like they were complaining about how many copies they were selling, and this person trolls them and says, "On the bright side, no matter how many copies you sell, it'll always be a satisfactory number," which is a hit at them. And the person replies, 9 is not a satisfactory number, implying that they only sold 9 copies. And they went on, and there are several updates to this article where they claim that, like, they spazzed out for a while, where they were claiming, like, no, they were just kidding. They didn't actually sell 9 copies. But they started the whole deal by complaining about how few copies that they were selling on Epic Game Store. And that people were getting refunded for their purchases. And I don't really, like, they came back and said that this is untrue, that they sold more than 9, that they have influencers selling their game. And that might be true in terms of the influencers. I don't really know. But it's just funny to me that, like, they would just admit this, that they're having problems selling the game. And the people behind this game and the social media account are just total SJWs. But this was just a funny thing to me because they just went on like this epic tirade about, not selling enough copies and not having enough support and blah, 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 and virtue signaling and that sort of thing. And it's like, well, I hope that Epic game money was worth it because, it really is. Other than the main game, Fortnite, it is a small platform. Yeah. So that's it. I just thought this was a funny tirade to go on. Let's see, is there anything else to it? No, I think that was it. Let's see here. Oh yeah, by the way, guess what's coming for anime? This is kind of a side point, but I called this a while ago. They're coming for anime next. Buckle up, weebs. because they're coming for you now, and they're going to get everything. They're going to get it all. There's nothing you can do. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't really think there's anything else here. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm probably going to delete most of these articles afterwards because they're really old. Not worth really talking about. Yep, that looks like that's about it for the news. So unless anyone has, I'll check my Twitter account, even though I've been suspended, just to see if anybody sent me anything. Nope. All right. Nope, that's it. All right. So let me see if there's any more super chats. No, that's it. All right. Well, I guess we can wrap this up unless I'll answer a couple questions and we can wrap this up. Stop sharing my screen. Close these. All right. Remember to save these links to post later. Someone says, Conserva Republica says I should make a Discord, even V has one. I'm not interested in that because it's just something then I have to micromanage. So no thanks. I don't really have that big of a base anyway, so it's not really worth it. But I appreciate the enthusiasm, but nope. Just not worth it. Let's see here. Read the correction. I did read the correction. They disavowed. They said they sold more than 9. What is going on in this chat? Hey, somebody in the chat, don't do that. Whatever your name is, Jason, don't do that or you're going to get timed out of here, bro. What is this? How's it like now that I'm a homeowner? I mean, I've been a homeowner for a few months now, so nothing really different, you know, just mowing the lawn now, doing the boomer shit. I don't want to Google anything to do with the New Zealand right now. Save that for another day. It's too dark of a topic to deal with today. Thoughts on actual Niccolo Machiavelli? I don't really have many thoughts on Machiavelli. I've read The Prince. I don't remember if I finished it. All right, it might be looking like it. So if that's it, we can close this off. Why did I get myself banned on Twitter? Because I don't really care about it anymore. I'm kind of burned out from it. I just think it's a bad platform, and I think it's like crack. I think it's making people unhealthy. So I'll be back on Twitter in a week. I said I knew I'd be suspended for a week. I got that right. But it was the last one, the tweet that, let me see. I saved a picture of it. I'm going to tweet it out once I get back just to fuck around. It was the last tweet. Let me zoom in. There we go. It was when I said, I'm still here despite calling a journo a faggot, despite calling a politician a nigger, despite being 13% of the population, ... And I quote tweeted myself. That tweet got reported and I had to delete it. And I got suspended for a week. And it's likely because somebody reported it. But I was pretty much just doing whatever I could to get suspended in the first place because I don't really care anymore. I'm kind of done with Twitter. Like, it's addictive. It's too addictive. It's like with Sargon. Like, he's the same way. Like, he just screws around on it now because he doesn't care. But he keeps getting banned from it, but he keeps coming back. Like, he's addicted to it, and I think I'm the same way. Like I said, it's the crack rock of social media. It makes people genuinely unhealthy. It's the worst one. Do lewd Saturdays again? Well, nah. I can't anymore. All the accounts that I used to get the images from got banned. Like, I have other sources that I could find lewd images. But I don't really I don't know if I really feel like doing that because I would just get banned again. And I don't even know if I wouldn't get banned on Gab too, with frickin' Torba being the way he is. Like, he's, who knows? Somebody asked me about demographics. I've already talked enough about that, really. There's not really much else to talk about. Let's see if I missed anything. No, I didn't. All right, I'll do one more question. We'll end this fucking 4-hour stream. Wrap it up. I watched some amount of portion of Milo and Sargon. I thought they were actually going to meet in person. They still plan on doing that at some point soon. I don't really know what the point is. They didn't really seem to have a point in the discussions that they were having, other than going over the same kind of deal, same sort of details as they always have. Somebody asked me when I'll be on Mueller's podcast. I tweeted them. I haven't heard it. Like, they tried to set something up with Rags and who was it? Scrump said that they were going to set something up with me, Scrump, and Short Fat Otaku. Nothing came of it. Haven't heard from him since April 10th. I talked to Mueller on the 4th of April. Haven't heard since. They just never got back to me. So, unfortunately, it's just a matter of, like, unless I freaking pester the shit out of him, I doubt it's really going to happen. Milo cream Sargon on plastic bags, lol. What do you mean, like single-use disposable bags? Oh, Sargon and I talked the other day, and he talked about plastic bags, and I disagree. I don't think plastic bags should be banned because there are a bunch of uses that they like. When they say single use, that's a misnomer. They're not actually single use. There are plenty of uses for a plastic bag after you come home. Like, yes, plenty enough people just throw them out, but if you have pets, they come in handy. And if you have like other things that you can use them for, like trash bags or whatever, they come in use. They come in handy and they're useful. It's really better to chop down trees for paper bags. Well, paper, as far as I'm aware, you can actually recycle better. But I agree, either way, using resources. And yes, it won't be the end of it as well. I agree with that. I think plastic bags is just another front. It's just another way of just banning shit. Because with New York City, there's just on a never-ending they're just always banning something. Go watch after an hour and 30 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, that was a couple questions, so I'm just gonna end it there. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for all the people that super chatted me and support my channel. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter, even though I won't be saying shit for 7 days because I've been suspended. But follow me on Facebook, Gab, especially here on YouTube. Visit my affiliate links and support me on Subscribestar. I had a couple people unsubscribe from me on Subscribestar, which was disappointing during April. And it was a bunch of people in a row. And they all gave very similar reasons, like I just got laid off or what have you. Like they all had very similar reasons. Like 5 people, like within a couple of days, did that. And I was like, whoa, that was weird. So feel free to subscribe to me on Subscribestar to make up for those people that all unfortunately randomly lost their job in April. Because I appreciate that support. And I am working on other videos at the moment, but it's just a matter of having the time to work on them, even though obviously I spent 4 hours doing this, but I actually have to sit down and plan these out to actually get them out. But I'm working on a couple of videos right now, and I got some old videos that I'm going to have to work on and get up just because they're already dated. But I'll get to it at some point, and waiting for the 9th. Hoping my schedule opens up because I want to play Life is Strange 2, baby. Can't wait for it. But until then, thanks for listening.